Okay. Mike's gonna be a little. There we go. Um, sure. Basically, just putting on some music because I fucking need something to keep me awake. Anyways, so I tried this once. Didn't work out because tried it in the mid to late day, and the mid to late day is exactly when all of the people I know are ready and willing to play every other video game in the world. So I got called upon mid attempting this to play one of said video games. But instead, now that it's early as fuck in the morning, I can definitely get away with doing a relatively in-depth cube analysis. The format for this, in general, I'm going to be I'll give like a quick intro here in a second, and then I'll be going relatively in depth card by card. So this is my analysis of the custom draft Yu-Gi-Oh cube that I've put together. The intention is to take this giant collection of cards that I have here. I think it's like 400 or 500. Shuffle them up and then create packs essentially. By dividing the cards into piles. The way I play it, we take the number of players in your session, you multiply that by 2, and that's the number of cards per pack. Drafting happens where every person starts with a pack, picks one card, passes it along, just like in Magic. And everybody should eventually get 2 cards out of each pack. So, with that in mind, there's a large contingency of generic cards, and then there's a few archetypes in the draft. Strategy-wise, you pick up a lot of generics, and then try to, whenever you see the best cards of an archetype, pick those up. So I'm going to go through first all the generic cards that I have in the draft, talk about them, talk about which ones are the most powerful, talk about why certain ones are included, talk about combos that the generic cards can be included in, and then I'll go through the archetypes, talk about their power levels, talk about representation numbers, and stuff like that. In terms of the strength of this cube, it's relatively low power level, and it's been developed over the course of maybe 10 play sessions. I started out with kind of an absurd cube, honestly. The first time I made the cube, I had many duplicates. Cards were in there at upwards of 3 copies per card. That turned out to be boring, or at least it made it so that drafting was far too archetype centric, and archetypes weren't cool. It was just, did you draft all of the cards for your archetype or get interrupted in your drafting, which isn't that interesting. So now archetypes are a little bit less represented. Archetypes have some crossover so that you're not boned if you only pick archetypal cards for a while, but then somebody steals the best card from your archetype. And there's usually only one-ofs of cards. There are either one-ofs or two-ofs of cards for the most part. There are exceptions to that rule, but those exceptions are few and far between. So anyways, I'm going to get started. So with the generic cards, most of the generic and for most of these that I'll go through archetypes-wise, I think they're mostly sorted by extra deck monster, monster spell trap, or something along those lines. I think some of them are the complete inverse, which is my bad. But so be it. So we're going to start with generics. Generics, there's only 2 extra deck cards. If you don't know these extra deck cards, it's Geonated Transverser and Relinquished Anima. Now, Transverser, it is an earth monster, so an argument could be made that it synergizes with the earth archetype that's in the cube. But Transverser, just any 2 effect monsters, put in your EMZ, and then you can switch the control of the monsters here. thus far, every time this cube has been played, these are some of the most powerful cards. Transverser causes your opponent to pretty much always play in, I believe, I want to say this column right here, whenever it comes to important monsters, because it's the only column that is safe entirely. Or, I mean, these two in combination make it so that this is the only actually safe column to play cards in that won't get stolen, because Transverser makes this and this column a danger column, because if your opponent has the Transverser here or here, I guess, wait, maybe it's these two columns that are the danger columns. So maybe, yeah. This is the safe column. Sorry. So if Transverser's here or here, your monsters here are at risk, and then Anima puts these two columns at risk. So if you pay close attention in the draft, and anybody leaks any information, or you look over at tables and see who's drafted these cards respectively, then you know when you have to play around columns and which columns to be afraid of. This column will always be safe from these effects, obviously. There used to be 2 copies of this, and I think even 2 copies of this, and one time we played, I had all 4, and it was brutal. If you didn't, you could only really have one monster, because Jesus, everything else would get either slurped up for attack or switched with something dog water. So yeah, those are the generic extra deck monsters. I do have this set up here. I don't think, for the most part, I'm going to be using it. I'll probably only pull up cards that I think are like super not common or known. These two I'm hoping people know, because they're pretty straightforward. This requires a level 1, by the way. One little tidbit. I mean, I might mention it a lot of times because there are level 1 monsters in the cube, but there's not a lot of them. Or at least the ones that are in there aren't very good. So sometimes you might draft a really bad level 1 just because if you've already drafted this thing, it's insane. Or you might draft the level 1 early on before you even draft this thing because you know that either you're going to get this thing because you already have level 1s, or your opponents might omit to grab this because they had not gotten level 1s because you've been taking them. So, cool cards. Interesting strategy around those. So next we've got effect monsters, and oh boy, there are a lot of effect monsters in the generic column. This is how many effect monsters are in the generic category. Some of these technically seem to constitute their own like mini package, but they're not enough to be considered an archetype for the purpose of the cube, in my opinion. We've got some fiends here, and that's because in the most recent set, Darkwing Blast, these 2 cards were super interesting in the sealed format. They're both fiends, and they synergize with each other very well. There's not like I don't think there's not really a dedicated fiend archetype, but these are 2 other generic fiends that are included. This honestly might be a point where pulling up the card database is a good idea, though it's not very large, and if I make it too large, it gets a little ugly. Let me see how this looks. We'll make it huge and then just like hide and show it as necessary. So anyways, so I will search for, I'll start with the Salamander because this guy, these 2 are interesting. So anyways, Salamander Catalyzer, level 4 Fiend Fire. Reveal this card and 1 fiend monster in your hand, special summon one of them and discard the other. And when a monster is destroyed by battle involving your fiend monster, while this card is in your graveyard, you can add this card to your hand, and you can only use each effect once per turn. So basically, the thought process is, if you have any other fiend monster, which this is the best one to use it with, you can either summon that fiend monster or this itself by discarding whichever one you didn't choose. And then, in any battle where a monster is destroyed, that involved a fiend monster on your side of the field while this is in your graveyard, you can add this right back. So if you have even if you just have a small fiend monster, right? You have this in the grave, you summon the small fiend monster, if your opponent destroys your small fiend monster, a monster is destroyed by battle involving your fiend monster. It's just that the fiend monster is the one being destroyed, so you can add this back to your hand, and then maybe do it again. There's not a ton of fiends in the cube, of course, so it's not like it's going to be super OP, but the fiends that are in the cube are like, you know, they're interesting to use with this effect. The primary one, also from Darkwing Blast, hence I will search it up here, is Soul Scissors. Soul Scissors is if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, while this is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card, banish it when it leaves the field, and if this card is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target a monster your opponent controls and then destroy it. So you can only use each effect once per turn. So thought process being, you have these two in your hand, you activate the catalyzer, and you can, depending on what you want here, really, you can discard the catalyzer to summon the Soul Scissors as like a chump blocker or as like link material. If you do it this way and this is in your graveyard, then if you use it as a blocker, like you just have it sitting there for battle purposes, your opponent will have to crash into this, right, to attack you directly eventually. This gets added back to your hand as gas for later. And then if you have any other monster on the field, your opponent crashes into that monster, and this triggers from your graveyard. So that's basically the idea. And this is just this. It's super nice. You get to only use the destruction effect once, but that's not terrible. Then these two cards, more generics. Now at this point, I'm not going to be talking too much, hopefully, about synergy. These are recent additions, and they synergize. They just don't synergize with a full archetype, so they're still in the generic category. The rest are just good, right? So Mask of Darkness. Hopefully everybody knows what Mask of Darkness is. It adds a trap back. Pretty generic. There's lots of traps in the cube. Cap Shell does a ton of weird stuff. Maybe Cap Shell is worth showing off. Cap Shell. Cap Shell. You can only use one of the following effects of Cap Shell once per turn, and only once that turn. If you tribute it, you draw a card. If it's used as material for a fusion, synchro, or link summon, you draw a card. Or if it's detached from an XYZ monster to activate its effect, you can draw a card. So it's just a guy that if you use it, you get to draw a card. I just put him in here because I think that it's neat that it kind of works with everything. And, you know, draw power is kind of few and far between. So having some goofy little guy that can be used for something and then draw you a card to replace it, very fitting for a cube format. All right, next, Psychic Rover and Cum Horse. Both of these are definitely also worth looking up, and they're both from Darkwing Blast. So Psychic Rover is insane. This card, I put in this in here as kind of a knowledge check. I think I talked about this last time I tried to do a full cube analysis. So if you know that this thing's broken, you take it immediately. Whenever it's special summoned, you roll a 6-sided die, and if you roll a 1 or a 6, you get to destroy up to 2 cards on the field. If it's sent to the graveyard, you roll a 6-sided die. If you roll a 2, 3, 4, or 5, you special summon it. While it's on your field in the face-up monster zone, you cannot special summon from the extra deck. In a draft format, or in a cube draft format, that doesn't really matter a ton because this itself is already carrying you as long as it is summoning itself, because they have to keep beating over it. And every time it comes back, you have a chance to just pop 2 cards, which is insane. So if you draw this, sometimes it's just a first turn FTK in a draft format if you just keep hitting, right? If you keep getting lucky, they never break through your rover. You start doing kind of normal summon shenanigans, and the moment that they do break through the rover, then that's when you take your grip of resources that you've gotten to hold on to because this has been guarding you for so long, and you start going off into the extra deck, hopefully, assuming you have a decent extra deck. So yeah, broken card. The Cucumber Horse, it's a pain in the ass to trigger, and doesn't do a ton, but I just think it's cute. If this card in the monster zone is sent to the graveyard, or this card in the monster zone is sent to the graveyard, except during the battle phase. So, essentially, it only exists during battle, is the idea. At the start of the battle phase, if it's in your graveyard, you can send a plant from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard, special summon it, then special summon a monster from either graveyard to the field, but send these special summon monsters to the graveyard at the end of the battle phase. So, Cucumber Horse. terrible card unless you get the exact things necessary to make it work. Then, in that case, it's pretty good, honestly. Bad song. Let's not do that. This song goes hard. So, if you have any plants, you can bring this out, special summon another monster just during the battle phase. This is a 2000 defense guy, and then you can also special summon one monster from either graveyard. So you can get something cool with like an effect that triggers on summon. Like, you know, maybe you steal your opponent's Psychic Rover or something just for the once. Get one dice roll or something. Although be careful about that because it will trigger once again. Anyways, interesting card. Mostly just put it in here because I had a slot of a card that was significantly less interesting, and I had it as a common from Darkened Blast. Other generics. So Caligo Claw Crow, an extender if you have any dark monsters. Technically, I could consider this to be part of the like dark centric archetype, but it's not a spellcaster, and the dark centric archetype for this cube is a spellcaster. I consider this mostly to be an extender. There's enough archetypes in the cube that have dark in them that you can just take this and sometimes use it to help you link into something or just have a tribute, whatever. Skelengel, flip, draw a card. You know, you don't. It's not amazing. It's not bad. You place it face down, it replaces itself, and it defends you from one attack. Maneater Bug. Amazing. It's a 1-card removal, 1-for-1. Can hit tons of stuff. Monster removal is premium. Mahjong Munya Maidens. This is probably worth putting up on the search here. Mahjong Munya Maidens. So this is a 2000 defender, which is already pretty nice. And when you flip, you can draw a card and discard a card. So it lets you loot. And once per turn, you can change it back to face down. So if you set this, your opponent hits into it to battle during battle, hopefully with something less than 2000, flips, you get to draw a card and discard a card, gets a little bit of consistency, and then comes back to your turn, flip it back face down. Your opponent either wants to remove it with monster removal so that you don't get the flip effect, or they just have to beat over it, but in that case you get to once again do a draw one, discard one before it has lost all of its usability. So, nice card. Definitely generic. God, I keep getting Snapchats. Get out of here. Okay. Anyways. Light Law Medium. This is a cool card. Very, very, yeah, so, another thing about this cube is that a lot of the cards that I included are commons that I just, Light Space Law, Space Medium. Are cards that I included just because I saw them or witnessed them during a sealed event at my locals. And I was like, wow, that is an interesting card in sealed, so it's probably an interesting card in draft. Light Law Medium reads, at the start of your opponent's battle phase, you can target any number of attack position monsters your opponent controls. While this card is in your monster zone, those monsters must attack this card this turn if able. And, once per turn, when an attack is declared involving this card and an opponent's monster, you can negate the attack, and if you do, inflict damage to your opponent equal to half the original attack of that opponent's monster. So, if you just normal summon this on your first turn or something, or you normal summon this going into your opponent's turn, then during their battle phase, if they have, like, 1 or 2 monsters, then this is a very cool card, because you can say, start of the battle phase, activate effects, I'll target... if they only have 1 monster, you say, I'll target your single monster. It has to attack the Light Law Medium this turn. They attack it. Light Law Medium gets a once per turn to just negate that attack and inflict burn. So no matter what, if they have just 1 monster, you get to burn them for the amount of that monster's attack, and then they lose their battle phase, essentially. If they have 2 monsters or more... So if they have 2 monsters, you can target both of the monsters. They have to attack it with both. They attack it with one. If they're smart, they'll always attack with the smaller monster first. That monster's attack will get negated. They'll get burned for that amount, and then they'll attack again with the other monster. They have to attack this, so they remove it, and this has served its purpose. It protects any other monsters you may have had from battles with those other, with whatever monsters they had, with those 2 monsters on the field. So this is kind of soaking up hits. You could even say, like, let's say you have a board with some monsters you really want to keep. You can put this up and then target all of your opponent's monsters and say, you have to attack with, like, some number of these at this before you get any chance to attack my good monsters. Or you can just target their biggest monsters. So let's say you have like a 1600 monster guy that has like some continuous effect or something that you want to use it for on your next turn, and you have this. You can summon this, target your opponent's monsters that are greater than 1600 attack, and say, all right, both of these monsters are going to have to spend their attacks beating over this thing, so that whatever other monsters you have can't get over this monster I really want to keep alive. If they have, and that's the use case for when they have more than 2 monsters. So I think it's a neat card. I think it's niche, and that's why I think it's cool for a draft cube. Card D, it is draw power. So if you don't have anything else to do, you can draw 2 cards. You can maybe, let's say you have just a ton of back row in your deck, you drafted a ton of traps, just set a bunch of traps, card D, draw 2, and then your turn ends. And you know, that's, everybody knows card D, hopefully. This next one is another one that's probably worth putting up on the card search. It's Mad Hacker. So Mad Hacker, also an insane sealed card. If a monster is special summoned to your opponent's field, you can special summon this card from your hand. During the end phase, you can banish this card you control, take control of one monster your opponent controls with the lowest attack, but while it is face up on your field, it cannot activate its effects, and you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck except link monsters. So, thought process for Mad Hacker. If your opponent is going first, it's insane, because they don't get a battle phase to beat over this. So during main phase 1, they special summon something, you special summon this. During their end phase, you get to banish this and then take control of whatever they, like one monster that they've summoned. You would generally want to then use that monster that you've stolen just as a link material, because you can only make link monsters. But if it's a big enough just guy, you can just keep it as a beater and then not really give a shit about the extra deck in general. If your opponent is not going first against you with this, you might want to wait until main phase 2, so that they can't just beat over this, so that you don't get its effect in the end phase. But regardless, if they special summon something, you can special summon this as just like a defense position blocker in like the minimum case scenario. Next card, Propagandic. This thing is also fucking weird. But it's a type manipulation card. 2000 defense beater, or 2000 defense defender. So it's already pretty decent. But if you control a monster whose original type is beast, insect, plant, or rock, declare one of those types, this becomes that declared type. If this card has applied this effect, also apply the following effects while it remains in the monster zone. All face-up monsters on the field become the same type as this card. And I think it's, yeah, the following effects, plural. And monsters on the field with this card's type cannot be targeted by either player using the effects of monsters your opponent controls with that same type. So, what that means is if you drafted any beast, insect, plant, or rocks, you can summon this guy, declare one of those types. This will become that type, and all monsters on the field will also become that type. So you interfere with any of your opponent's type synergies, which there's not a ton, I don't think. There's like some dinosaur stuff and such and such. And you make it so that all of your monsters cannot be targeted by the effects of your opponent's monsters, because your monsters are now the type declared, and your opponent's monsters are also the type declared. So it essentially gives you board-wide monster targeting protection. However, I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? Symmetrical. So you also can't target your opponent's stuff. So I would use this. This honestly might be even a side deck card if you have its required types. Just because if you know your opponent has tons of monster effects that target, you can side this in as your tech against it. Although a 2000 defense defender is still pretty good, and it's got like a situational upside, which is neat at the very least. Next, another freaking goofy card that probably deserves looking up. So the reverse jar. It's another jar. Love me some jar monsters. This one reads, flip, change as many other monsters on the field as possible to face down defense position. Then return as many face up spells / traps as possible from the field to the hand. Then each player can set spells / traps from their hand up to the number returned to their own hand by this effect. So main thing is when you flip it, it's a board-wide Book of Moon, which is good. Interrupts a whole battle phase. The effect about spells and traps, not going to be super relevant, especially not for this particular cube. Maybe I'll try to implement some sort of archetype that cares about face-up spells and traps. But you would bounce all of them to the hand, and then everybody gets to, each player gets to set as many spells and traps directly from their hand equal to however many got bounced. So maybe if you have like a cool continuous trap, like a kunai with chain or something like that, although that's not a continuous trap, but it is something that stays on the field. If you have any cool traps like a nightmare wheel or a kunai with chain that stay on the field and you've just flipped everything, things that get glued to the board. So I'm actually not sure about Nightmare Wheel. I'm not sure if that gets sent when the target's gone. I know that's the case for like Call of the Haunted though. So like, you know, you book everything, or maybe let's say you've had a Call of the Haunted stuck on the field because the monster got removed in a way such that the Call of the Haunted didn't get sent to the graveyard. Then you can bounce it back to your hand and use it again. Extremely niche scenario for the second effect, but you know, something to think about. Krebins, everybody knows Krebins or Krebons. He's a tuner, 1200 attack, 400 defense. Whenever it's targeted, you can pay 800 life points to negate the attack. So it's it's like kind of a last ditch effort. You summon it, you get to just take 800 damage from every attack instead of whatever amount of damage you would have otherwise take. Love me, yeah, Dan, the bonbons, love this guy. Jowgen, he's Jowgen. You can discard a card, destroy all special summon monsters, and then neither player can special summon monsters. I just think that's cool. A board wipe for special summons. If you're playing against someone who has a greedy special summon deck, like the Cyberse archetype that's in this cube, you can blow it up with this as a side deck card. And then maybe, let's say you have more of a tributing archetype or something, or you have like a deck that only has like one extra deck monster you ever really want to get into. You get into that extra deck monster, and then after that you just kind of summon this guy and hope they can't get over it somehow, or that your extra deck monster protects it, and then lock them out. It's Jowgen. Everybody Jowgens. Smoke Mosquito, probably worth putting up. Smoke Mosquito's cool. Another card that was really cool in the local sealed for the pre-release. This was of Battles of Chaos. So the Smoke Mosquito says, during damage calculation, if you would take battle damage from an opponent's monster's attack, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, the damage you take from that battle is halved, and end the battle phase after the damage step. You can target one face-up monster you control. This card's level becomes the same as that monster until the end of this turn. So the second effect of the level manipulation can help with some of the generic XYZs that are in the cube, or even just like synchro summons, which are also relevant. It's an insect, so maybe you can use it with the Propagandake. But the main thing is that it's basically a goofy battle fader. You have to take some battle damage, but you take half of it, and then it ends the damage step. So not the worst thing. And it's not a battle fader only for like direct attacks or anything. It's just when you are going to take damage, you have it, and then you get to end the battle phase and summon this guy, which is useful. Very, very useful. It's like a super strong card. Cyber Valley. Everybody should know Cyber Valley. It's a dude. You summon it. When your opponent targets for an attack, you get to draw a card and then end the battle phase. Or you can target a face-up monster you control and this card, banish both, and draw 2 cards. Or you can target a card in your graveyard, banish both, and 1 card from your hand, then place that target on top of the deck. Most of the time, you're using it as a normal summon pass. Your opponent has, like, as long as your opponent doesn't have monster removal, they attack into it, you get to draw a card, it replaces itself, and then it ends the battle phase. Super nice stall card. Sometimes you might use the second effect, I'd say, to banish itself and then some other dog water monster you don't want for a draw 2, which is nice. I don't want to listen to this song. This song's too sad. Oh, this song goes hard. Okay. Turbo Booster, classic. If you have normal summoned a monster this turn, you can special summon it from your hand. Tribute this card to destroy 1 monster your opponent controls that battled one of your monsters this turn. So you can use this, if you've normal summoned, you can use it as an extender to get into link plays or synchro plays, or you can use this after the battle phase of a turn where you have normal summoned to pop a monster your opponent controls. Simple. Extra Ceratops, another goofy ass card that's definitely worth throwing up on the thing. I just think it's cool, and it's definitely like a draft style card. When a monster in the EMZ is destroyed by battle, with a monster in the main monster zone and sent to the graveyard, while this is in the graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position to the field of that destroyed monster's owner. You can only use this effect of Extra Ceratops once per turn. No, we're not going through every level 1. These are just the level 1s that I've included. It so happens that they are in order this is my custom cube. Levels are just in order of the cards that I have for generics here are in order of level. So I'm starting with the level 1s that are in the cube, other than the stuff I talked about at the beginning, which was generics that I've recently added. Anyways, basically, if it's summoned, and then when this is summoned and destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. So let's say you have a card in the extra monster zone, your opponent crashes over it, this is in your graveyard, your extra monster zone monster gets destroyed, you can summon this dude from your grave, they have to beat over it, and then you get to draw a free card. So it's weird, it's nice, it's not insanely useful, but as if you'll recall, level 1s are premium because Relinquished Anima is insane in this draft cube. Hydralander Orbit, another dumb-ass card that needs a search. I love Hydralander Orbit. It's not insanely good, and it's definitely not as good as Orbital Hydra Lander. But Hydralander Orbit, if you have 4 or more monsters in your graveyard and no monsters in your graveyard with the same name, you can tribute this card. Activate the top cards of your deck equal to the number of monsters in your grave, and if you do, if 2 or more monsters were excavated and all excavated monsters had different names, add one of them to your hand and place the rest on the top of your deck in any order. Also, you can banish this from your graveyard, target 1 monster in your graveyard, and place it on the bottom of the deck. So, Jesus, so much going on. It works in a draft setting because often you're not going to have many duplicates. So the idea is you can normal summon this while you have 4 or more monsters and none of them have the same name in your graveyard. Then you can tribute it. You excavate cards as equal to that number of monsters in your graveyard. And then if you have revealed at least 2 monsters with different names, you can add one to your hand. It's not amazing. It's another level 1 fodder potentially for Anima, but it does let you dig through your deck to find a monster, as long as you have a Highlander deck, which is why it's called Hydra Lander. People talk about it's a reference to Elder Dragon Highlander from Magic, which is a format where you only get to have 1 copy of each card. And the bonus effect is a recycling effect. I mean, it's not insane, but it's not bad, right? So maybe you summon this dude, you link it off into Anima, use Anima's insane effect. Later, they clear your Anima. You just banish this, put this back on the bottom of your deck. You can use Anima again later with another level 1. So honestly, that's probably the best use case for it. The first effect I just think is cute. And if I ever got to pull it off, I'd pog pretty hard. Leaf Place. This card is another sealed format banger. It absolutely destroyed me the last time I've played with this cube. It just gains 200 attack and defense for every card in your opponent's graveyard, and during your standby phase, if it's in your hand or graveyard and your opponent has more cards in their graveyard than you special summon it. So the first time you summon it, it's going to be probably tiny, right? Because your opponent probably won't have a lot of cards in the graveyard, but in the grind game, over time, it's going to not only get bigger and bigger because the number of cards in your opponent's graveyard is going to get larger and larger, but it'll just keep summoning itself as long as you have fewer cards in your graveyard than your opponent. So hopefully you just do, and often it is the case that there is at least some point in the grind game that you have less cards in your opponent's graveyard, or less cards in your graveyard than your opponent's graveyard. So you're going to keep getting to summon this, and eventually it'll be like a 2k or a 3k or something, and it's gotten there for me. It only takes 15 cards in your opponent's graveyard for it to be a 3k, so very good card. Jesus, this is another knowledge check, kind of like the Psychic Rover, wherever that was, the Psychic Rover. Another knowledge check, just like the Psychic Rover. You should know that this card's insane in a sealed format or / draft format. If you ever do a sealed box break format with Battles of Chaos, take all of it, like hope and pray that you get all of these or draft for all of these because they're nuts. Honestly, dude, Ancient Lamp is just in here because I think it's funny. When this face down position, defense position card is attacked by your opponent's monster, I feel like this is pretty old, so hopefully people know this one. It's mostly in here just because I found it in my bulk and thought it was neat. But anyways, if it's attacked by your opponent's monster, you can make an opponent's monster, one opponent's monster be attacked instead. And then while it's face up on the field, you can special summon a La Jin, the Mystical Genie of the Lamp, from the hand. So if they attack it, it's revealed. You can basically make one of your opponent's monsters attack another one of your opponent's monsters. So it's a mutiny, right? And then also, if this then subsequently survives, I believe I do have La Jin in the cube somewhere, so you can maybe summon a La Jin if you draft both. Mostly, I just think it's cool that it forces your opponent's monsters to battle each other. I'm certain that this thing is some kind of ruling nightmare. Don't really care. The ruling nightmare probably doesn't occur in this cube, and if it does, so be it. Cyberjar is Cyberjar. It's broken and fun. You put it face down, destroy everything. Both players excavate 5. You summon all the monsters that are level 4 or lower, and then you draw the rest to your hand, which is dope. It's a power card, but it's a power card that's worth staying. Denko Sekka, classic. While you control no set spells or traps, neither player can set spells or traps or activate cards, set spells or traps that are already on the field. It's just a floodgate for spells and traps. There are a lot of generic spells and traps in the cube, so it's worth sometimes drafting that. Injection Fairy Lily, huge beater. You pay 2,000 to make it a 3,400 beat stick during damage calc, and you can just do that as many times as you want. So definitely a decent card. It costs a lot, but it lets you get over some big boss monsters that you might not otherwise have gotten over. Sangan, Floater, lets you search into things. Very good, generically good. Fossil Dyna Pachycephalo. I don't think this is a great card for the cube format, but it's something that does something, really. If you want to floodgate people, you can. Or if you're playing, it's like a side deck type draft. I would usually not draft this if I could avoid it. You can use it for generic XCs at least. Actually, no, you can't, Lamau, because neither player can special summon. So, yeah, bad card, IMO. It is golden, though. One of the few golden cards in the draft. Shining Peacephilia and Mimicking Maneater Bug are both broken. They are basically Soul Reapers plus. They both cannot be destroyed by battle, so they are cards that force your opponent to have monster removal. In previous iterations of the draft cube, these were not included because of how annoying they are. I just think that I've decided that I think there should be power cards that are super easy to use, just because there's enough of them. It's a knowledge check. Makes games not super easy or super boring. There can be instances where it's frustrating to face these down, but that's why you have to draft monster removal. You have to think about the fact that you might be playing into people that have drafted these insane cards. Peacephilia can't be destroyed by battle at the end of the damage step. If it battled an opponent's monster, you can put a counter on this card, maximum of 4, then apply the effect based on the number of counters. Effect 1 is place a monster from your deck on top of your deck, so tutor a monster. Effect 2 is draw a card. Effect 3 is tutor a monster from deck to hand. And effect 4 is tutor a card from deck to hand. So if your opponent keeps hitting into this, or you start swinging this into your opponent's monsters, then, and obviously you'll have to sacrifice some damage to do so, you'll just start getting insane draw power off of it. So generally you have it face down, your opponent attacks into it once. At the end of the damage step, you're going to get 1 counter, and you will get to look into your deck, take 1 monster, and put it on the top of the deck, which is pretty strong already. So, and then it's not destroyable by battle, so your opponent's going to have to deal with it. Otherwise, you're going to get to keep greeting it for more and more value over the course of the duel, while sacrificing probably a decent bit of life points, but tons and tons of value. Mimicking Maneater Bug. It's basically Maneater Bug, but it cannot be destroyed by battle, and it cannot be destroyed by effects of the monster. Of monsters that share its type, and when it's flipped, it targets a monster, destroys it, gains attack equal to its original attack, and then changes its type to its original type. So it's like a Maneater Bug that kind of is a skinwalker. It steals the identity, essentially, of whatever monster it destroys, and then it can't be destroyed by the effects of monsters of the same type, and it just straight up can't be destroyed by battle. So if your opponent's playing a type-based deck, like they've got warriors or zombies or dinos, you flip it, can't be destroyed by battle, you pop one of their dinos, it becomes a dino, and then they can't destroy this with the effects of dinos, so they need to get over it with something else like a spell or trap. Okay, we're about halfway through generic effect monsters. This is taking a good while, but that's kind of what I wanted it to do, so that's just how it's going to be. It's a stream. We're going to keep going. Proof Finesse, the Tactical Trapper, another sealed format type card. Proof Finesse is trap synergy in an interesting way. Let's Proof Finesse the Tactical. Oh, it has a comma. The Tactical Trapper. I know I can just search only a portion of it, but I'm just putting the full name in just because. Anyways, if it's normal or special summon, banish a trap from your deck, increase its level by 1. You can target 1 trap in either graveyard, banish it, and if you do, increase its level by 1. If this card in its owner's possession is destroyed by an opponent's card, you can set one of your banished normal traps. So, you can normal summon it, banish a good trap from your deck, increase its level by 1. You can then later banish another good trap from your graveyard as well. Just like the level increase isn't the huge significance, although it might help you with synchroing somehow. Also, it's a fiend, which is good to note for the Salamander Catalyzer. But regardless, you just start banishing traps out of your graveyard. It's an 1800 beater. If they ever destroy it by effect or by battle, then you get to reset one of your banished normal traps. So basically, it lets you either normal summon it, banish the best normal trap from your deck, and then when this is destroyed, set that. So let's say you drafted like a Mirror Force or something, although I don't remember if Mirror Force is in here honestly, which we'll see when we get there. But anyways, you set that, and then you get to set that insane trap. Or you do that, you banish some dog shit trap that you just had to include in your deck because you needed to meet the minimum deck size requirement. And then later you can banish like a good normal trap from your graveyard so that you can reuse it with this when this dies. Decent card. Dracoon Lamp, cool card. It basically just does damage step with defense instead of attack. So sometimes you can get over sneakily high attack monsters with this because it has 2000 defense. So very useful. Anytime it battles, if this attack position card battles an attack position monster, you can apply defense instead. And it's an option. So, I mean, it's never going to be the case probably that you want to attack with 500 attack as opposed to 2000. But anyways, let's say they have like a 3000 attack monster that's got like 100 defense. So they've got a huge link monster. Although I don't think this actually works with the link monster. So ignore that comment. But I'll have to look it up. I don't know if the link monster's defense would be treated as 0 for that case. It's probably just that this effect wouldn't work against a link monster, or that you would only apply this thing's defense and the link monster's attack. Regardless, if they have like a big ass dude with like 3000 attack, and a very small amount of defense, you can get over it using this. Same works. It like works against the freaking Injection Fairy Lily even, I'm pretty sure, because Fairy Lily modulates her attack, but she only has 1500 defense. So if they have a Fairy Lily that you're having trouble beating over, you Dracoon Lamp, swing into it, effect, you'll apply 2000 to the 1500, so they can't just get away with paying 2000 to increase its attack by 3k, because attack doesn't matter. Also, the first effect just literally means nothing. There's so few worm monsters, and worm synergy is not a huge thing. There are Tenyis, but the Tenyis do not, in this cube, are not about worms. They're not worm folk-centric, really. And this effect is dog water with worms. If you discard a worm to increase it by 1000 defense, so you can make it into a 3000 beater if it's so necessary. But most of the time, you're using it to get over monsters that have really low defense, not high defense. Okay. Next up, we've got the Chakrams, and I believe I'll also include the Sunlit Sentinel here, disrupting the organization a little bit. All of these cards are monsters that you can set face down in your spell trap zone. This cube has lots of back row, and subsequently has lots of back row removal, because, like, you know, it would be annoying if your cube had back row and not back row removal. But these are goofy little punishes for people who drafted a lot of the back row removal, because, you know, you can set these in, like, you as a player can set these in the spell trap zone, and then they basically just summon themselves when destroyed. Sunlit Sentinel is, you can set it here. If they pop it, then you get to summon it during the standby phase of the next turn, and then destroy all cards your opponent controls in the column that you summon it in, which is pretty cool. So set it here, your opponent Mystical Space Typhoons it. During your next standby phase, you declare effect, summon it in the column that has their big boss monster or whatever, or some sort of back row, pop them both, or pop whatever, right? Cool card. Chakram, it's an artifact card. It's not Scythe. God. Fuck Scythe. But anyways, you set this. If it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special it. And then while this is in your hand, you can actually... What's interesting is if you have back row, while this is in your hand, if your opponent does something to attempt to destroy your back row, you can bounce the back row and then summon this instead. So perhaps you say, let's say you have like a dog water card, like spell or trap that you can't use at the time, right? So it's like a normal spell that you need the relevant card to synergize with it to use it. Maybe you set the normal spell because you have this in hand, baiting out the Mystical Space Typhoon just to get this as a free special as a defense position monster during your opponent's turn. I don't know. It's a use case, and an interesting one at that. Taya Matin, you can summon it if 3 or more cards are in the same column. And it's just that if there are 3 or more cards in a column, you can special summon this period to whatever column. And then if this card is special summoned, you destroy all other cards in this card's column, and neither player can use unused zones in this card's column. It's only in here because it's a cool card, a free special, it pops things, and it interacts with zones, which I think is cool. Lupine, it's type synergy. When it's normal summon, banish a monster from your hand and a monster from your deck with the same type as that monster. If it's destroyed by battle or is destroyed by an opponent's card effect, you can target a banished monster, add it to your hand. Pretty straightforward. Lets you find monsters as long as you have a relatively type synergistic deck. UFO Turtle. I should probably include this in the fire archetype of the cube. It's a fire floater. You know it. Bazoo. Banishment Beater. It's just a guy. It's a guy. You banish cards, give it bigger attack to beat stuff. Blast Sphere. If this face down defense position card is attacked by opponent's monster, you can equip this card to the attacking monster. Then during the opponent's next standby phase, destroy the monster and inflict damage equal to the destroyed monster's attack on the field. Basically just monster removal, but with more steps. Jinzo is Jinzo. Power Giant, you can special summon it by sending a level 4 or lower monster from your hand to the graveyard, and then decrease the level of this by that monster's level. If it attacks or is attacked until the end of the damage step, any effect damage you take becomes 0. That effect means nothing. Mainly, it's just a guy that's an extender at the cost of discarding a level 4 or lower. Sometimes helps you level fix. Rain Bazoo, love this guy. What a freaking sweetheart. Hydrate. You make a good point. If exclamation point hydrate in that sense was to imply that I'm talking too much without drinking, you are right. Not sure if that's what you meant, but I did just take a fat swig of Gatorade. Get me my electrolytes. I talk a lot, and I do it for... I did debate, high school debate for a long time, and coach debate, so I'm huge into talking a ton. Anyways, Rain Bazoo. Pendulum effect. Once per turn, target a face-up monster you control. It gains attack equal to the difference between the number of cards in the extra deck times 100 until the end of the turn, even if this leaves the field. I just think it's cool that this references the number of cards in the extra deck. That's why it's in the cube. It's basically a mediocre, like, Rush Recklessly, pretty much, that benefits you if you took a small extra deck. So, you know, if you want to take a small extra deck, play something that's more board centric like the spellcaster portion of this cube is, then this card might be for you just because it's funny. Also, technically you could summon it, I suppose, and it's got an 8 scale, so maybe if you have any other scales you could pend, but it gains attack during your turn only and gains defense during your opponent's turn only equal to the difference of the number of the cards in the extra deck times 200, and if it attacks, it's changed to defense position at the end of the battle phase. So I mean, technically if you somehow summon this thing on the field and you did get that payoff of difference in extra deck cards, it'll get 200 attack per difference, so it could be a 3k if you have 0 cards and they have 15 in the extra deck. It could be a 3k attack and defense monster where you attack with 3k, it switches to defense, and then during your opponent's turn it has 3k defense. Not the main point. Main point is just the pend effect. Phantasme is Phantasme. There is a Link archetype in the cube, so you might want to draft Phantasme to counter the Link archetype. Tetsudo Erat Numen, I just think he's adorable, and he is like a floodgate, which is hilarious. He's just so cute. Look at him. He just says neither player can special summon monsters with 1800 or more attack. Maybe you set him face down, they flip it face up in battle, and then they're locked out. Maybe you normal summon it and hope that their entire strategy is not going to be able to get over it, or you have some way to protect it. But it's also a level 1, so you can use it for the Relinquished Anima. These two, Mary and Maron. These are just anti-fatigue, I guess. That's a Hearthstone phrase. Sorry. Anti-deck out. When it's sent to the graveyard, shuffle it into your deck. When it's sent to the graveyard, place it onto the bottom of the deck. Also, you can activate one of the effects of Mary instead of just the first one. The first one is place it on the bottom of your deck. The second one, though, add Outstanding Dog Maron from your deck to your hand and then place this on top of your deck. So kind of cute if you draft both. Mary fetches Maron and then puts Mary back. So you'll still never deck out and you'll search a Maron. Maybe that matters. Doesn't usually matter, I don't think. Main thing is they're good level 1s for Anima, and they can stop you from decking out if you expect to be decking out. And then finally, for generic effect monsters, you have Magician of Faith. If you don't know what Magician of Faith does, I don't know how to help you, but God, is it good. Alright, so generic spells. Spells, I might run through a little bit quicker and just hit the, talk about the significant, like the interesting or uncommon ones. Convulsion of Nature makes you play with your decks upside down. I think that's funny, so it's in the queue. Forbidden Lance, Forbidden Dress, they negate stuff. Forbidden Lance makes it so that you target a monster, it loses 800 and it's unaffected by spells and traps. That's pretty cool. Can be protection if you need it. So maybe your opponent has a targeted removal, you can Lance to protect, and then this cannot be targeted or destroyed by other card effects on one monster. So maybe, you want to protect from a Raigeki or some monster effect that pops. They're generically good. Reasoning, it's good. summons a guy if your opponent guesses wrong. Monster Gate, it's good. Summons a guy at the cost of a tribute. So maybe you get an extender and you summon a cool guy that can be normal summoned off the top. Double summon, you get 2 normal summons. These here, I did put these spells and traps kind of in order of their general purpose. These 3 were kind of niche. These are about these are spells and traps for extenders. So normal summon lets you do an additional normal summon. It's an extender. Monster Reborn lets you summon a thing from the graveyard. It's an extender. Monster Reborn. You target 3 monsters in your graveyard. Your opponent chooses 1 and you special summon it, then banish the rest. So it's worse Monster Reborn, but it's still an extender. These are the theft cards. So you got Creature Swap. Classic. Everybody knows Creature Swap. You got Brain Control. Classic. You got Enemy Controller. Classic. And you got Mind Control. So one of each of the most other than Change of Heart. No Change of Heart. Maybe I'll include Change of Heart someday. But you know, the 4 of the most iconic kind of theft-esque cards. You got Concealing, Revealing, and Nightmare Steel Cage. These are all pretty neat stall cards. You've got Rush Recklessly, Burden of the Mighty. These are the only attack modulation spell traps. This is one of the few face-up spell traps, I guess, other than these swords and whatnot. Both good at modulating attack points. If you don't know Burden of the Mighty, each monster your opponent controls loses attack equal to its level times 100. It's just a very plain minor debuff for your opponent's monsters. Next is Spell and Trap Removal. So 2 Night Beams and 8 Mystical Space Typhoons. There's tons of these because there's tons of traps. There needs to be tons of these to be draftable. So there's tons available. Night Beam is better and worse. It can't be the card you target can't be activated in response, and but it's not a quick play spell, so not terrible. If your opponent put a Jar of Greed or something down, this can troll them. Anyways, Tribute to the Doomed monster. Oh, so I think this is monster removal section, and it's not just destruction removal; it's just monster removal of some kind. So Tribute to the Doomed, discard 1, destroy. Shield Crush, destroy a defense position monster. Book of Moon, flip a card. Hammer Shot, destroy an attack position monster with the highest attack. Fissure, there's 2 of those because it's pretty good and interestingly generic. Destroy a face-up monster with the lowest attack. Smashing Ground, destroy the face-up monster with the highest defense. Now these are where we get into some cool removal that I think is unique. That will be necessary to put up on the database for sure. So this is Parasomnia Pillow. This is also a classic. This is also a sealed pogged card. It's an equip spell. During the end phase, you can destroy the equipped monster. If this card is sent to the graveyard because the equipped monster was destroyed and sent to the graveyard, special summon a Parasomnia token with the equipped monster's original type, attribute, and attack, and equip this card to that token. So the point of this card, you equip it to your opponent's monster during your turn. Then during the end phase, you pop your opponent's monster, and because this is going to go to the graveyard because that monster was popped, then you also get to summon yourself a token that is essentially that monster in general, with this card equipped to it. There is a synergy that I will mention later that comes up with the trap cards that I used in the sealed event to extreme success. But yeah, Parasomnia Pillow. Very, very cool card, especially for a draft format. Offerings to the Doomed, classic. You destroy a monster on a face-up monster on the field, but then you have to skip your draw phase. Knock, it's knock. Banish a face down, or destroy a face down and then banish it. And then if it's a flip, then you get to banish all of them. Vortex, discard a card to Raigeki. Back to square one, discard a card to bounce to the top. Supply Squad, so this is where we're getting into draw. So that's all the removal spells, generic removal spells. There are archetypal spells, and I think some of them are removal. So draw power. I think, yeah, the rest of these are draw power. So Supply Squad, insane card. Once per turn, if a monster you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, draw a card. So you activate this, and over the course of the duel, it might draw you like a bajillion cards. Who knows? Super useful. Shard of Greed, it's like Pot of Greed, but you have to wait 2 turns to use it. Card Destruction, it's card destruction. You can recycle your hand. Some decks do like Graveyard Synergy, so maybe you draft it for that. Top Share, love this thing. It's hilarious. Let's show off Top Share. Reveal 1 card from your deck and place it on top of your deck. Then your opponent reveals 1 card from their deck and place it on top of their deck. That's it. That's all it is. So you get to tutor your best card, but so does your opponent. It makes games fast and interesting. So Top Share is cool. Risky, very risky. Unless you have a way to draw immediately after using this, you should be very careful about using this because your opponent is going to get access to their best card before you do, unless you have some way to draw into it. For example, card destruction or supply squad or something along those lines. Reload is reload. It's like card destruction, but you don't discard. Pot of Avarice is Pot of Avarice. Magical Stone Excavation is Magical Stone Excavation. Get a spell back. Gold Stark is Gold Stark. Tutor over the course of 2 turns. One Day of Peace is a piece of shit card, but it's a symmetrical effect for the most part, so you know it's relatively fair. And then this card is only in here because everybody who was playing the cube with me was clamoring that it be added, even though they acknowledge that it's a sacky piece of crap card that whoever drafts it is always going to have a pretty good advantage, but it is the Pot of Greed. So there's only one of them. If you draft it, you're happy. Obviously, most of the time you snap pick this unless there's like the best card for your archetype that you're drafting into in a pack and it's like mid to late in the cube. But otherwise, dude, pick this all the time. Doesn't even matter. Yeah, so that's generic spells. The generic section of this cube is like the biggest section, so it'll hopefully get a little bit smoother after this section. All of these are trap cards. Every single one of these is a trap card. So the trap card section of the cube, yeah, it's big. Hence 8 MST, 2 Night Beam, and along the line there's even more spell trap removal included. I'm going to be very quick on these traps because, God, there's a ton of them. I did also order them somewhat in terms of their function. And these first few are misc. I couldn't really think of how to categorize them. Trap Stun, negate other trap effects. It's a tech card, you might want it. Grave Robber, lets you basically use a spell for your opponent's grave. If you know your opponent drafted Pot of Greed, you might also get your own Pot of Greed. Jingzhen Hu and Jingzhen Hu Replica. Jingzhen Hu, select 2 stellar traps set on the field. As long as it's random field, they can't be activated, and this one's literally the same thing, but it only hits 1. These are just like spell and trap removal, but like in a weird, indirect kind of way. Dust Tornadoes. We got 4 of them. We need more spell and trap removal because, goddamn, is this a lot of traps. So 4 Dust Tornado. Draft those, at least a couple. You really got to make sure that when you draft, you're not too greedy, and you make sure to draft some spell and trap removal. Now here's some draw power spell and traps. We've got 1 Reckless Greed, 2 Jar of Greed, and a Dark Factory of More Production. Dark Factory of More Production. Oh, sorry, didn't need to turn that on. Dark Factory of More Production. You can send a monster from your hand or field to the graveyard and draw a card. So it lets you recycle bad monster cards into draw, which is very nice. Here we have some counter traps. You've got 7 tools. You can negate a trap card. Broken Line is one of my favorite cards of all time. When a spell trap or monster effect is activated in this card's column, you can activate this to negate the effect and destroy the card. So very cool. I love column play. Counter traps are powerful, and this is like one that requires thinking. Don't make it obvious that you've used a Broken Line. If people are looking over at tables and they see you using the Broken Line, they'll know to play around it. So try to be stealthy. Magic Jammer. Negate a card to negate a spell activation. Black Horn of Heaven. Negate a special summon. Destroy it. Dark Bribe. Negate a spell or trap, but you have to let them draw. And Magic Drain. Negate a spell card and destroy it, but your opponent can discard a spell to negate this effect. So that's the extent of the counter spells. In terms of these next ones are all, I believe, battle tricks. This one's technically a draw card that is related to battle. This Smile Potion, if your opponent controls a monster whose current attack is higher than its original attack, while you control no monsters, you can draw 2 cards. So this one is if your opponent has buffed any of their monster's attack points by any effect, such that their original attack of that monster is different than the current attack of that monster, you get to Pot of Greed. I probably should have kept this. Should have put this in the draw section, so I'm going to do that now. Put that in Dark Factory. It's a very situational draw card. It's a cute draw card. There are plenty of effects that modulate attack points. Like even Anima, you can activate Smile Potion if they have an Anima that is equipped. Battle tricks for realsies this time. There are there are a lot of them. Oh man, there's so many. Okay, battle tricks. Scrap Iron Scarecrow. Insane card. Very good to draft. Lets you negate 1 attack per turn, basically. Wall of Disruption. Insane card. To reduce attack by like an absolute ass ton. If they have a large board, you could probably just set it all to 0 if they attack. Wabaku. No battle damage, no monsters being destroyed by battle. Threatening Roar. No battle phase. Sakuretsu. Destroy an attacking monster. Punch in the Box. This one is probably worth showing off. Punch in the Box. When your opponent's monster declares an attack while they control 2 or more monsters, target the attacking monster, negate that attack, and if you do, send one other monster they control to the graveyard. Then the targeted monster loses attack equal to the attack or defense of the monster sent to the graveyard. So if your opponent has 2 or more monsters, they attack you with one of them, you get to not only negate that attack, but then just like send a different one of their monsters, so it doesn't even target, it's just a send. And then whatever monster you negated the attack of also loses attack equal to the monster sent. So maybe they have a big boss monster and then some other dogshit monster. They attack you with the big boss monster. You get to negate it and then send their dogshit monster and then make it so that their boss monster is really easy to run over. Or maybe they have a big boss monster and some other dogshit monster. They attack with the dogshit monster. You negate that attack, send the big ass boss monster, and then the dogshit monster has 0 probably, right? Punch the box. Cool card. Very strong. Draining Shield is Draining Shield, negate an attack, gain life points, negate an attack, and then also end the battle phase, but it does have to target. Magical Hats is Magical Hats. I just think this card is cool and interesting and cute and funny and all those good adjectives, so it's in the cube. Doesn't always work out, but maybe you thin your deck of your worst drafted traps. Defense draw. If you take any battle damage, you can reduce it to 0 and then draw a card for 1 calculation. So usually it's just a card that replaces itself and then lets you stop the battle damage of 1 battle. Now, Titanocider is busted. This thing, I remember I drafted 2 of them one time, and it was back-breakingly strong. Honestly, I should hydrate again. I'm running through. Okay, so Titanocider. Target a face-up monster you control. Or sorry, your opponent controls that was special summoned from the extra deck, changes attack to 0, and negate its effects. If your opponent special summons a monster from the extra deck while this is in your graveyard, except the turn it was sent to the graveyard, you can set this card. So it's like an infinitely reusable set an EMZ monster, or sorry, an extra deck, an ED monster, I suppose, to 0. It's insane. You should always be drafting this. It punishes extra deck play. That's cool. I think that trying to get people to do less extra deck play and more main deck play is funny. So Titanocider, there's 2 of them. Try to get your hands on one of them if you play this cube. Okay, next up, Metalmorph. You should know Metalmorph. Classic, basically equip battle trap type beat. Blast with Chain, also good. Equip battle trap, you know, you gain 500 attack for one of your monsters, and then if the card is destroyed by the effect of another card while it's an equipped card, you get to pop a card. So if your opponent removes this while it's face up, you get a pop. They probably won't. Or you can also MST your own Blast with Chain to pop something, or Dust Tornado your own Blast with Chain while it's equipped to pop something. Probably not the main use case, but it is a use case. These are all extender traps, I believe. Yeah, it looks like maybe a little bit of the ordering got effed up. But anyways, extender traps. Call the Haunted. It's an extender, lets you resummon from the grave. Phantom Knights of Shade Brigandine. If you don't have any traps, you get a free level 4. Burst Rebirth, pay 2,000, target a monster in the graveyard and special it in face down defense. Synergizes with a lot of the flip monsters in the cube, like the Reverse Jar, the Cyber Jar, the Moth, etc. Golden Apples, pretty cool. It's an extender because it summons a guy. Whenever your opponent deals battle damage to you, you can activate this, gain life equal to the battle damage taken. So, and it's only while you control no monsters. So you gain life back, so you basically go net neutral on the damage, and then you get a token that has stats equal to the damage you took. So if your opponent swings at you with the 3k, you take 3k damage, you activate this, you gain 3k life, and then you summon a 3k. So it's pretty cool. Mimesis Elephant. It's a trap monster. You special it as an effect monster with 2,000 defense. If it is in the monster zone, you can declare a type and an attribute, then target a face-up monster on the field, which will then become that type and attribute until the end of the turn. Type modulation may matter. Mostly it's a 2,000 defense trap monster, which is nice a lot of the time. Powerful Rebirth. You just get to basically monster, or what's the... I just literally just call the Haunted. You can call the Haunted, a level 4 or lower monster, increase its level by 1, and then defense by and attack and defense by 100. So it's just a call of the Haunted for only level 4 or lowers that also buffs them a tiny little bit. Metal Reflect Slime, 3,000 defense trap monster. Miracle's Wake, target a monster destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard this turn and summon it. And then back to the front, target a monster in the grave, special summon and defense. So that's all the extenders traps that are generic. Next, we've got more removal, I want to say. Like generic removal type beat. Although some of these are definitely not. I guess yeah. These are removal. Yeah, we'll talk about them. Okay, Shadow Spell. You target a face-up monster your opponent controls, loses 700 attack, can't attack or change battle position. So removal essentially, and it reduces attack, so you might be able to beat over it. Widespread Ruin. An opponent's monster declares an attack, destroy the attack position monster with the highest attack. So it's like a Sakuretsu armor, but a little worse, because it's a little less easy to choose your targets. Widespread Ruin. When an opponent monster declares an attack, destroy the attack position monster with the highest attack. Oh, is that the exact same card? Hold on. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, : Oh, they are the same card. It's just alternate arts. Lamau. I guess there's 2 copies of Widespread Ruin. Neat. How did I not notice that? Whatever. I've got a small little pea brain, I suppose. Remote Revenge. Activate only when a monster you control is targeted by a spell trap or effect monster's effect that destroys one monster on the field. Switch the target to an appropriate monster. So you can redirect a Raigeki break or some shit like that. Floodgate Trap Hole. When your opponent special summons a monster, you can flip all of their monsters to face down, and they cannot change their battle position. Insane removal. Magical Cylinder. It's Magical Cylinder. Spellbinding Circle. It's Spellbinding Circle. Raigeki Break. It's Raigeki Break. Compulse. It's Compulse. Infinite Dismissal. Level 3 or lower monsters are destroyed during the end phase of the turn that they were normal or flip summoned. Kind of a Dogwater card, no cap, but like sometimes it happens. So I would say it's a tech card, a side deck card. Compulsory Escape Device. 2 people have to shuffle a monster. Each player has to shuffle a monster they control into the deck. Vivid Tail. Here it is. This is the card that synergizes with this Parasomnia Pillow in a way that I think is freaking cool. So Vivid Tail. What it does, you can target 1 card you control, return it to the hand. If this card is in your graveyard, you can target a face-up card you control, set this card, and if you do, return that face-up card to the hand. But for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate cards or the effects of cards with the same name that card had once it returned to the hand. You can only use 1 Vivid Tail effect per turn and only once that turn. So basically, you Parasomnia Pillow your opponent's monster, which is the equip spell. You destroy their monster in the end phase, and then Parasomnia Pillow comes back equipped to the token. The thing about Parasomnia Pillow is that it only works when it's destroyed. It only comes back when it destroys a non-token monster. So you're not going to get the Parasomnia Pillow back once the token you summoned is destroyed, but the Parasomnia Pillow will be face up on your field. So if you Parasomnia Pillow, destroy a monster, it goes to the grave, it comes back with equipped to a token, and you set Vivid Tail, then during your opponent's turn, as they declare battle on your token, or just at any time really, you can flip Vivid Tail, bounce the equip spell back to your hand, so that now it's usable once again on your next turn as another removal / summon a guy card. And it can even do it just again from your graveyard by returning another thing and resetting it. So basically, Vivid Tail is like almost infinite, really. I think it banishes though. Yeah, so it has a lot of use. You can use it a lot of times because you use it once, and then while it's in your grave, you use it again for another bounce. Oh, what the hell? I accidentally hit forward. We'll do this one. It's a bounce, and then it sets, and then you get to use it again, and then it banishes. So each Vivid Tail has 3 uses of its own effect. So if you have 1 Vivid Tail and 1 Parasomnia Pillow, you're basically going to get to resolve that Parasomnia Pillow 4 times. And then if you have 2 Vivid Tails and a Parasomnia Pillow, you can use it 7 times. And if you have 2 Parasomnia Pillows and 2 Vivid Tails, you can resolve 8 Parasomnia Pillows. And I think that Parasomnia Pillow is definitely a card that you'd like to resolve 8 times in a sealed / draft format. Tears of the Overroot. Target 1 card your opponent controls and 1 in their graveyard. Send the card on the field to the graveyard and then set the other card to the field. Interesting card. You can take one of their monsters and then a trap in their grave that's not very good and then switch them. Or you could take a monster in a grave and the monster on the field, switch them essentially. So it's really good removal for sure. Trap Hole is Trap Hole. Liberty at Last. When a monster you control is destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, target 2 monsters on the field, shuffle them into the deck. So it's technically it's a 2 for 2 because it only happens when your monster is being destroyed. But monster gets destroyed, you activate this and you get to shuffle 2 monsters. So it's a decent 2 for 2. Nightmare Wheel. It's Nightmare Wheel. Divine Wrath is Divine Wrath. You get to negate a monster effect and destroy it at the cost of a discard. Break Off Trap Hole. It's a tech card against Link strategies. If your opponent Link summons, or when a Link monster is Link summoned, you can destroy all non-linked monsters. So you can even trigger it yourself if you set it and then wait a turn. As a pseudo Raigeki, like maybe you have Relinquished Anima in your deck. You anima them, steal something, and then chain Break Up Trap Hole or something like that. I guess you'd probably not chain to this because then it would just destroy what you were going to equip. So I'd say, well, actually no, it wouldn't because it would be linked. Yeah, so you anima something, activate. Oh no, anima's effect is a ignition. So you anima, activate Break Off. Break Off kills everything except for what anima's pointing to, and then you use anima to take the last thing, or something like that. You know, you link summon, you can Raigeki. Break Off Trap Hole's good. Dimensional Prison is Dimensional Prison. Michizure, when you only activate it when your monster is sent from the field to the graveyard, destroy a monster on the field. You can use this. It's a when effect, so it might miss timing sometimes, but you can trigger it yourself if you get your own monster sent to the graveyard. Although actually it might not be a when effect based on here. Let me look if it's got like an errata that makes it read better. Michizure. When a monster is sent from your field to your graveyard, even during the damage step, target one monster in the field, destroy it. Okay, so I don't think it's because it's not a when you can, so it's just a when. So yeah, Michizure, you can trigger it yourself, which is cool. Jelly Cannon, when a monster declares an attack, target one monster in the field, shuffle it into the deck. Just a dope-ass card. And then Bottomless is Bottomless. Woo! So that is the entire generic portion of the cube. It looks like a lot already. This is just generics. There are, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 archetypes of varying size. And then there are some other cards that are kind of miscellaneous, as I would put it. Let's see, how long have I been going? An hour to get through all the generics? That's not that bad. And I also, like, chatted just about what I was going to do for a few minutes, so. I'm putting away the generics back in the box right now. Hold on. Okay, so, before we get into the archetypes themselves, I'm going to take a swig of Gatorade. Okay. So we've got two more piles that are not generic, but they are not full archetypes. So this is what I call generic Xyz. So it's specifically Xyz generics / monsters that support Xyz generically. So we've got Wind Up Arsenal Zen Mayo, 2 level 5s, once per turn, detach 1 and destroy 2 set cards. Pretty good. Illuminate, 2 level 4s, you can detach 1 to send a card from hand and then draw a card, so basically detach to loot. Then here is the more spell trap removal. We got 3 Tornado Dragon. Everybody knows Tornado Dragon, the rank 4 that has 2 Mystical Space Typhoons on a stick. So it's a useful card. You should draft that if you get the chance. Totem Bird, it has a spell trap negate, but it's 2 level 3 wind monsters. So you're probably only going to be activating this if you go into the wind archetype of the cube, which it does have. There is a wind archetype. Bamboozling Gossip Shadow, 2+ level 3 monsters. It's essentially an effect negate. Turns any effect into a both players draw 1. Like it's an effect replacement. The other effect doesn't really matter. Terror Bite, it's another rank 3. This guy's mostly just in here because you can turn 2 level 3s into a 2900 defense guy. Also, though, you can detach 1 to target a level 4 or lower attack position monster your opponent controls and gain control of it until the end phase. So maybe it lets you steal something for a Link summon or some shit like that. Castel is Castel. You can book a moon by detaching 1. It's pretty generic. Or you can detach 2 to shuffle 1. So it's a very, very good generic Xyz removal. Gaga for game. Zen Mains is an insane rank 3. You can detach to stop it from being destroyed, and then during the end phase you can pop 1 as long as it's still there and you have resolved that effect. Slacker Magician's just, it exists such that if you have 2 level 1s you can make a 2100 defender with them, and also once per turn it can't be destroyed by battle, and when a card or effect is activated that targets this face-up card you can detach an Xyz to negate it and then destroy it. So it's like you get to, if you're going hard into level 1s, perhaps because you have anima, you can also potentially make a pretty strong defensive guy, I guess a gal, that has a lot of protection in various ways. And these are the 4 generic Xyz support effect monsters. This can summon itself whenever you normal summon a level 4, so you can make a rank 4 really easily. This, when you normal summon it, lets you special summon a level 4 from hand, really easy rank 4. This is just a level 4 that you can declare level 1 to 8, so that it becomes that level. So it helps you level change to Xyz. And then Crane, when it's normal summoned, you can target a level 3 monster in the grave and special summon it, but it negates effects. So you can make a level 3 Xyz with this really easy if you have any other level 3. That is generic Xyz support. Pretty straightforward. Next is what I like to call the niche cards. These are cards that are not full archetypes and are in here kind of as bait. Basically, think of them as you could take all of the cards of a niche and then it would maybe do something good. But in general, if you're being a little too wanton about it, you might take them thinking that you could make it a strategy, but it's totally not a viable strategy. So first we've got the niche of Cyber Dragons. There's only 7 Cyber Dragon cards available, and they're not very good overall. The best ones are Cyber Dragon, because it's Cyber Dragon. You still get to special it. Veer is okay if you got the other Cyber Dragons, because it specials itself and buffs your Cyber Dragons. Core is okay if you also got an emergency and a plan. Basically, if you want these to do anything, you have to draft all of them, and then they still don't do much. So I don't know. I think that I wanted there to be something that would be enticing but not great, as a knowledge check or a strategic choice. And there also really needs to be, there always should be like some kind of fodder in the cube, such that there's something that like someone's stuck with at the end of the pack. I just think that that's an experience that a cube should have. I like to be a frustrated some of the time. Anyways, core searches a spell, right? So you search the Cyber Emergency, which then searches the Cyber Dragon, because Cyber Dragon is a good card. Something along those lines. Or you already have the Cyber Dragon in hand, so core searches the Rev System, which specials the Cyber Dragon, and then you special your Cyber Dragon. Repair Plant, if you have a Cyber Dragon in your grave already, you can get another Cyber Dragon from deck, which is probably just one of these, right? I guess you can technically get another Light Machine. I honestly don't know if there are any other Light Machines that aren't the Cyber Dragon set of 7. But that's the first niche, is the Cyber Dragon niche. The next niche is the Creator niche. There is Dark Creator, which is just, honestly, it's like a decent card if you have dark monsters in your deck. There's the Creator, which is a decent card. You can't Monster Reborn it, but you can just once per turn discard a card to special summon a monster from the grave. The Creator Incarnate, you can tribute it to special a creator from hand. And the Herald of Creation, you can discard a card to add back a level 7 or higher from your graveyard to your hand. So technically, this thing isn't directly intended to be synergy with the Creator by design. But I think it's neat that it says it is the Herald of Creation, and it does allow you to add the Creator back. So that's part of this niche. It can also add back any other high-level monster that you might be running, so it's not like a complete bust to have drafted this card. That's the Creator niche. The last niche is Blue Eyes. There used to be a Red Eyes niche. Blue Eyes is the nostalgia bait niche. It has some... it has potential. It doesn't have amazing potential, but it has potential. White Stone, you can, send it perhaps with your Dragon Shrine to get a Blue Eyes from deck to hand. Maybe that's good. The Burst Stream, if you get out the Blue Eyes, either by using Kaibaman or your Silver's Cry, which can also technically hit another Dragon normal, you can Burst Stream, which is cool. The Dictator, you can... If you have a Blue Eyes, so the only one Blue Eyes, you can basically choose your opponent's attacks, and then you can send a Blue Eyes from hand or deck to the graveyard to special summon this from hand. So if you did draft both of these, free special, put this in grave, and then hopefully you can Monster Reborn this or some shit like that, or Silver's Cry it, right? And then Kaiser Glider, discard this card and a monster, then target a dragon normal in the grave and special it. If this is sent to the grave, you can make all monsters your opponent control currently lose 500 attack until the end of the turn. So if you somehow got this into the grave, and you have this in hand, discard this and another monster, special summon this from grave, and board reduce attack by 500. So that is the Blue Eyes niche, and those are the only niches that are like bait, essentially. Blue Eyes, honestly, not the worst package that you could include if you draft all of them, and that's why I consider it to be a sort of a bait. Next, we're going to go through the smallest archetypes first. We'll go smallest to largest in terms of archetype for card representation. The smallest archetype is zombies. It's in level of large to small. So the zombies, we've got Algul Mazera. Algul Mazera is a another sealed banger. So I'll put it up here. If a zombie monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your hand or graveyard instead. If this card is banished from your hand or graveyard, you can special summon this card in defense position and then reduce its level by 1. And it's optional to reduce it by 1. So if you have any other zombies, this can protect the zombie by banishing itself from the hand or grave, and then it can special summon itself because it did that. And then when it's banished and you summon it, it'll go to the grave, and then you can get it back or banish it from the grave to summon it again. So very good zombie card. Jack-o'-Bolin. Hopefully people are familiar with Jack-o'-Bolin. You can discard a zombie to special summon it, and then during your opponent's main phase, you can target a zombie to either graveyard and special summon that monster. Then banish this face-up card until the end phase. So it tags into a zombie. Destrudo. I think I mistakenly put this in the zombie section because he looks like a disgusting zombie. He's actually a dragon tuner that synergizes with the synchro section of the deck. He does look like a filthy, ugly zombie guy, though, so that's why he's here. Anyway, Shang-Chi, the Spiriado, another very good sealed card, or card that I discovered when I was playing the Dimension Force sealed. It's also good in actual zombies, so maybe people would recognize it. I must have... Shang-Chi, Spiridao, not Spiriado. Spiridao. During main phase, you can send one zombie from your deck or hand or deck to the graveyard. So just straight up lets you foolish one. If this is banished, you can banish a zombie monster in your graveyard to special summon it. But place it on the bottom of the deck. So this is one way that you can like subsequently summon Algul after it's already used its effect once and is now in your stuck in your grave. Next, we've got some level 4s. Regenerating Mummy and Fear from the Dark. These are classic. When this is sent from your hand to the graveyard by opponent's card effect, you can return it to your hand. I don't think that ever happens in this cube, to be honest. And Fear from the Dark, when it's sent directly from your hand or deck to your graveyard by your opponent's card effect, you can special summon it. Also pretty sure that doesn't really happen. More importantly, though, is the Devouring Sarcophagus. This is another Poggers sealed discovery. Definitely really good in draft. When it's destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster, you can take control of that opponent's monster. And if you do, it becomes a zombie monster, and its attack and defense becomes 0. When your zombie monster is destroyed by battle with an opponent's monster while this is in your graveyard, you can banish this card and take control of your opponent's monster. If you do, it becomes a zombie monster. Also, its attack becomes 0. So, set this face down. Your opponent crashes over it. It goes to the graveyard. Then you take control of it into defense position if you can. You just take control of it. So it'll probably be in attack position, and it'll be set to 0/0. So you'll have to take some life points. But it becomes a 0/0 zombie on your side of the field. Your opponent swings over that 0/0 zombie. That is a zombie, so you banish the sarcophagus, and then you take control of that monster that they used to beat over the first stolen monster. So it's a double theft card. Very strong. Crow Tengu, another zombie of the sealed discovered variety. So it's a zombie. If it's in your possession, is destroyed by opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard. Or if this is special summoned from the graveyard, you can target an attack position monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So if you reborn this in any way, or if your opponent pops it by card effect, then you can pop one attack position monster your opponent controls. Decent effect. Spirit Reaper is Spirit Reaper. It can't be destroyed by battle. And its discard effect is pretty broken. Hey, wait, maybe its discard effect can actually trigger your the regenerating mummy or the fear if they hit that. Anyways, Plague Spreader is Plague Spreader. Mad Mauler is like the new Plague Spreader. It becomes named Plague Spreader later. Basically just a zombie extender. Zombino's a normal zombie. Call the Mummy. If you have no monsters, you can special summon a zombie. And then Haunted Zombies. Now this deserves being put up, I think. So Haunted Zombies, you can banish a zombie monster from either graveyard and special summon 2 haunted tokens, zombie 0/0, with the same level as the banished monster. If this card is in your graveyard, you can shuffle a banished zombie into the deck and then set this card, but banish it when it leaves the field. So activate it to get 2 chump blockers, or activate it to get 2 level 4s by banishing like this or something, to make a rank 4. Then, while it's in your grave, you can shuffle and recycle a good zombie like the sarcophagus or some shit like that, or perhaps the Spirit Reaper, and then you get to set it again and use this one more time to get more fodder for Xyz or for blocking. So I think the zombie package is small but viable for how small it is. All right, the next smallest archetype is light. It's small because it is powerful. These are all relatively well-known cards. Hippo Shinnigan, it's just the light link monster. Give you a universal attack boost and dark attack drain. Lets you recycle a light monster, and then the rest of it is just essentially light sworns and light sworn synergy. So there's all the light sworn. So you've got Judgment Dragon as your payoff for playing the light sworn package, and then tons of names. So you've got Garganeth, which is the only tribute light sworn. You've got Garoth, which lets you mill. You've got Jane, which lets you mill. You've got the Lumina, which is the one that summons and mills. You've got Genis, which is the lets you burn and gain life points. Just if you've sent things, it's just another name, really. You've got the wolves that summon themselves when they're sent. You've got Rinyan, which is the return a Lightsworn from graveyard to deck to draw on flip. You've got Lila, which is the spell trap removal. You've got Raiko, which is generically insane, but also a good Lightsworn card. You've got Charge, which is an insane Lightsworn card. You get to mill and then search a Lightsworn. You've got Realm of Light, which is a cool field spell for Lightsworns that lets you get a huge boost. Honest is good for lights in general. And then these two both let you banish them to end a battle phase. This is banish to end, or to negate the next attack. And then Electromagnetic Turtle is once per duel. You can banish to end the battle phase. So both payoffs for milling, and then Card Trooper is just another card that also technically mills and draws a card. It's generically good as well, but it synergizes with the Lightsworns. Okay, I can't really tell which is the next smallest between these two, so we're gonna go with this one. So this is a fun archetype in the cube, I think. This is Equip synergy, Equip spell synergy. So Seven Swords Warrior is the only extra deck monster specifically for this. It reads, it's a level 7 warrior, 1 tuner, 1 or more non-tuners. Once per turn, when an equip card is equipped to this card, inflict 800 damage to your opponent. Once per turn, you can target one equip card equipped to this card. Send it to the graveyard. When an equipped card equipped to this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls and destroy it. So if you get it out, equipping it lets you burn, and you can remove equips to pop things. Guardian Eatos. If you have no monsters in your graveyard, you can special summon it. You can send an equipped card equipped to this to the graveyard, then target up to 3 monsters in your opponent's graveyard to banish them and give this attack for each one until the end phase. So this is also generically good. It's a free guy that's pretty big, but also you can use equip synergy to make it do more stuff. Benkai gets to attack as many times as additional as you have equip spells. Mahavilo gets huger and huger for every equip spell. Mataza the Zapper just gets to attack twice, so equip spells get double the benefit from him. These are the only 2 negative equip spells that you use against opponents, so they kind of don't really synergize here, but I put them here anyway. This can't lets it so that it can't attack, and you take 500. You burn them for 500 per standby, and then Ekibio Drakmord. You equip it to your opponent's monster. It can't attack, and then after 2 turns, you pop it and you get this back to hand. So it's a recyclable, basically, I want to say like Spellbinding Circle, essentially. These are all just equip spells that are equip spells, basically. So United We Stand, Axe of Despair, Necklace of Command, Disposable Learner, Big Bang, Black Pendant, Deep Seated, Ballista, Fighting, Nuzzler, Megamorph, Mage Power, and Lucky Iron, and Junk Barrage. So you don't have to play the equip spells as an equip like deck per se, but you could, but they're all like moderately okay to put into any of the decks that you could possibly draft in this cube. Some of them are better than others for that purpose. But yeah, so that's the equip spells. The rest are cards that are just like that help you with equips. So Release Restraint Wave is a heavy storm if you can, if you have an equip spell. Hidden Armory, you get to add an equip spell from deck or GY to hand by sending the top card of your deck to the grave. You can't normal summon or set the turn you use it, but it lets you fetch an equip spell, which is pretty cool. Armory Call also lets you fetch an equip spell, and then you can also equip it to a monster you control. This guy is a transphobe. I'm going to skip that song. That's a banger. Okay. And then Horn of the Oliphant, you can banish and equip to pop, or you can destroy a Rolland. Rolland, that part literally doesn't matter. This is just banish an equip spell you control or in your graveyard to pop one. So it's a good synergy for equips. That's the next smallest archetype. I believe... let's see, which of these is smaller? Looks like this one's smaller by like 2 cards maybe. So this is Waters. Now Waters used to be in the cube with like a significantly larger contingency, like this much, but they were way too broken. They were so broken, and they were broken because Stealth Kraken is broken. It's just quick effect pops just like every turn, it turns everything into waters and floats into the spawn, which then can in some cases float back into the Kraken. So it's very good. The reason then that this is such a small contingency is because if you've drafted Kraken, I want it to be difficult for you to actually get into Kraken and like to kind of pigeonhole your draft after the point at which you draft Kraken, because it's just so good. But I think it's so cool that I still think it's worth being in the draft. Other Xyz that are water related, there's Black Ray Lancer, requires 2 level 3 waters. You can detach 1 to negate an effect monster face up on the field for a turn. Caesar, 3 or more, max 5 level 3s. You can detach 1, place a shark counter on it. If it's attacked or if it attacks or is attacked, it gains 1,000 attack for each shark counter on it. So doofy little card, only considered in the water archetype because it is a fish that is water type, water attribute. But you could make a giant shark maybe. And then Leviathan Dragon, 2 level 3s. You can detach 1 to give it 500, and if it has no Xyz, it can't attack directly. So it's just a guy, but it is a water type or water attribute. Abyss Keeper, Area, and Deep Sea Prima Donna are your other extra deck monsters going into water. Abyss Keeper, 2 water monsters, can't be used as link material the turn it's link summoned, but if it's link summoned, you can special a fish from your hand to a zone it points to. And you can target one other fish monster you control and 1 card your opponent controls, banish them. So with fish, it's got synergy, and it lets you extend area. Hope maybe if your opponent has a water in their graveyard, you can steal it. If they accidentally drafted a water, there are waters elsewhere in the cube that aren't considered a part of the water archetype, so maybe you snatch one of those up. But it's always nice to have something that you can link off into just in your archetype. Deep Sea Prima Donna, it's a synchro monster. You can target one of your opponent's banished cards, add to your hand, or special summon 1 level 4 or lower water monster from your deck, and then add that target to their hand. So you can basically get an extension, but only if you let them have something back. And then also if this is sent to the graveyard, you can target a banished card and shuffle it in the deck. So it has a recycling effect. It's kind of a strange card. I just feel like there should be 1 synchro to pay off for waters. Then the rest of it is just water stuff. So Silent Angler, it's a free special if you control a water. Deep Sea Nettle, it's a free special if you control a water. It locks you into water, and you can banish it from the grave and recycle 3 graveyard waters. Buzzsaw Shark, the best card. It's an auto Kraken, so there's only 1 of them, and hopefully you draft it. Abyss Soldier, discard a water monster to bounce a card on the field. Mother Grizzly's the water floater. Ice Knight, you can normal summon additional water monster this turn, in addition to your normal summoner set, but then then you're locked into waters. This can also potentially be an instant Kraken. Grethus, it's your tuner. You can target a fish, sea serpent, aqua in the graveyard with an equal or lower level to the number of cards in your opponent's hand and special summon it. And then also if it's sent to the graveyard as a synchro material, you can make that monster gain attack equal to the number of cards in your opponent's hand. The main thing is just you can summon it, and then you can pull a graveyard monster that's a pretty low level to potentially synchro. Lantern Shark, if it's normal or special, you can switch its level, you can special a level 1, 3, or 5, or 3, 4, or 1 level 3, 4, or 5 water from your hand in defense position, but then you can only make Xyz for the rest of the turn, so it can possibly be an auto Kraken. There's no longer right hand shark because that was making the Kraken too broken, but there's only left hand sharks. It can be useful. You don't get to special summon it by its own effect, but you can special summon it by other effects to make it level 4. And then if you do so, you can make it so that your Kraken, using water monsters, cannot be destroyed by card effects. Or you can just use Left Hand Shark to make one of the rank 3s to also make it not capable of being destroyed by card effects. Penguin Soldier is only here because it's a water and it's dope. Spell-wise, this lets you special a level 4 or lower water if you control no water, or no monsters. Surface lets you revive a water, so that's another way to pull up left hand. This lets you get consistency. These let you special a level 4 or lower fish, and then add a monster with the same name. The only thing that you could ever add is left hand, so you could white mirror a left hand, get its effect to turn to level 4, and then also search out the other left hand. Otherwise, you could use it on a non-duplicate card. And then trap-wise, you get an ice barrier. When a monster is when a attack is declared involving your opponent's monster, change its attack to 0, negate its effects, and it can't change its battle position. So it is technically a generic trap that's decent. And you can banish it from your graveyard, send a level 5 or higher water monster from your deck to the graveyard, then add a water monster from your graveyard to your hand. So big, giant secondary effect, but that part does synergize with water. The first part, though, honestly, worth taking this just as a generic. And then Icebound God. If 2 or more waters on the field, target face-up monster your opponent controls, it can't attack and its effects are negated. If a level 5 or higher water monster is normal or special summoned while this is in your graveyard, you can set this but banish it when it leaves the field. So basically, as long as you have 2 waters, you get an imperm, or you get like a, I guess, a Fiendish Chain, and then you can get this card back as long as you can summon a level 5 water monster. Which you can with Deep Sea Prima Donna, and that's about it. So the water contingency is small, but it has the potential to be absolutely insane as long as you draft the necessary materials to just make a Kraken, and potentially something else. Boring song, it's overdone. There we go, that's a good song. Okay, next, Earths. Earths. So I added some cards to this recently, so these cards are a little out of order. You've got Ausa as your Earth Link. The Earth segment is also technically just the Warrior segment. It involves some heroic champions. So you've got 2 heroic Xyz. Other heroics you have 2 Knuckle Sword, 2 Morning Star. You've got 1,000 Blades. And you've got a heroic Envoy. So that's your heroic chunk. I don't really feel like explaining heroics because I hardly understand them. Basically, they're just a warrior Xyz archetype that has a very easy time extending. So, but their payoff isn't like mega huge. It's just there. So it's decent. So this is your warrior Earth chunk. One of the Xyz is light, which is a little annoying, but so be it. The rest of the Earth chunk is just like weirdly generic stuff that also works. So you've got Marauding Captain is more, these are all more warrior cards. They're not all Earths, but they are warrior synergistic, so I kind of just kept them in the same chunk. So you've got, this is a warrior and Earth synergy, Exiled Force, so is Marauding Captain, so is Battle Survivor. Ninja Grandmaster Sasuke and Strike Ninja, they aren't Earths, but they are warriors, and they're level 4, so you can make your heroic champion Clavis Solish with these if necessary. And then you've got the 2 classics, Rhoda and Warrior Returning Alive. They support the warriors, which also happen to mostly be Earths. Other than that, you've got Vernisylphs as a minor package. The Vernisylphs are very good for Earths in general. You just get to discard these and 1 monster or another Vernisylph to search for Earths, summon Earths, generally just do crazy stuff with Earths. So these are good. Big Shield Garden is a big Earth guy. And he's a warrior, so I guess he should go over here. Giant Rat is your Earth floater. This thing is technically the bridge between the archetype of Earth and the archetype of water. So if you take both, you could use this. Basically, you can discard this to do an additional normal summon of an Earth or water monster during your main phase. So technically, you don't need to have both for this to be decent. But if you control both a water and an Earth while this is in your graveyard, you can special summon it for free. So that's a nice little bonus. But for otherwise, it's just a double summon just for Earths or for waters. And the last cards we have are these weird generic Earths that are just like surprisingly good. So this guy, if it's sent from the hand to the graveyard, can target 2 other beast, beast warrior, winged beast, insect, or plants with different types in the graveyard, shuffle them, and then special summon this card. You trigger this when you use Vernasylphs, essentially. You get to search when you summon it, but the things that you can search for aren't in the cube. This is exclusively because it can trigger off Vernasylphs, which I thought was cool, and it's a really cute big bear. So that's about, I don't know how to make focus happen. Anyways, cool. Then you've got Catalytic, Crusted Calcifida. If a face-up Earth monster you control is destroyed by battle or by an opponent's card effect, you can special summon it, then send a monster from the deck to the grave. So it's just basically, if this is in your hand, it makes all of your Earths a floater once. The same thing essentially goes for Bear Rock. If a monster you control or in your hand is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can special summon this from your hand. And if this is destroyed by opponent's card, you can target another dinosaur or rock in the grave and special summon them. There is a dinosaur archetype, so you could synergize with this if you would want to. For the most part, I just think that this is really strong as a, you summon it for free when something on your field gets destroyed, and it's an Earth, so maybe you can summon it off of one of these things. Then you have the Grand Tusk. If it's normal or special, you can pop 2 cards, which is absolutely crazy, and then it gains a 600 attack boost per card popped. So the strongest thing is to like Vernasylph this out. So just Vernasylph, pitch, and then summon, and then it pops 2 for free. And it's like a huge guy as well. And then Vanguard of the Underground Emperor. If a monster is sent from the hand to the graveyard while it's in your graveyard, you can special summon this card and place it on the bottom of the deck when it leaves the field. Also synergizes with Vernasylphs. If you Vernasylph this away, then this itself will special. And then you can use the Vernasylph effect to summon something other than this, and then you get 2 huge guys just for free. The Earths aren't huge on extra deck monsters because I feel that they are the strongest of the non-extra deck focused archetypes in this cube. Because they summon such big dudes just off of the Vernasylphs, like these huge guys. All right. Oh boy. So, hour and 45 in. We're nearing the end here. All right. We've got 5 archetypes left in the cube. These are the more represented archetypes, for sure. This next one is Speedroid / Wind Synchro. So this also used to have a significantly larger contingency in the cube, but I have cut it down a lot because it was far too good. It was just far too consistent for what it was. So there used to be many like 2-ofs of many cards. Now there's mostly 1-ofs, a few 2-ofs still. But anyways, so starting with the extra deck, we've got Kite Drake, Crystal Wing Synchro, Clear Wing Synchro, Maple Maidens, a High Speedroid Hagoita, a Chanbara, a Cork Shooter, Crossvelger, Win, and Greatfly. So this is I would say this is probably the archetype that has the largest extra deck contingency other than the Link archetype that's in the cube. This is not easy to make. You usually can only make this if you figure something out with this, which is possible. It's certainly doable. Or you just it's not like super hard. It's just sometimes the levels don't line up. So this is the boss monster essentially of the archetype, very strong. Kite Drake is a nuke, super insane. This is another negate kind of a boss monster. Cork Shooter, classic Speedroid extender. Hagoita and Chanbara are also classic Speedroids. Maple Maiden though, probably worth putting up on the database. Maple Maiden. If you would search, please. Yeah, so Maple Maiden. If it's special summon, you can declare an attribute. Then all face-up monsters become that attribute. And you can target 1 monster in your opponent's main monster zone. They must send 1 card from among its adjacent monster zones or spell or trap zones to the graveyard. So, 1, it lets you attribute change. That doesn't usually do stuff, but it can do stuff. Especially against like water or earth. And then other than that, it's just got a fun removal effect. You get to, target one of their monsters and they have to try to pick something around it to get rid of. So if they have a boss monster next to another monster with nothing else around it, you can just force them to send it themselves. Link-wise, you've got your Charmer of the attribute. You've got your generic Booster Man of the attribute. And you've got Crossvelgar. 2+ win monsters gains 2400 attack while your opponent has no monsters in your graveyard, in their graveyard, and quick effect, you can target a monster in the graveyard, shuffle it into the deck. So it can be huge if you shuffle all their cards in the deck, or if they have a very minimal graveyard. And it's basically like a DD Crow on legs, or I guess on wings, which so is the DD Crow. So regardless, it is a repeatable pseudo DD Crow as well, which doesn't matter a ton in this cube, but it may matter. Like zombie stuff can sometimes get interrupted. So other than that, I believe, I want to say most of these cards are sorted by Speedroid versus regular Wind. Yeah, here. Okay, so we've got generic Wind support and Speedroid specific support. So Mariamne, True Draco Phoenix, you can destroy 2 other monsters in hand or on the field, including a Wind to special it. If both destroyed were Wind, you can banish 4 cards from the top of your opponent's deck. If it's destroyed by card effect, you can add a non-Wind Worm. So this might synergize with something down the line. But regardless, it's a big guy if you have a lot of Winds. Alector. If your opponent controls 2 or more face-up monsters of the same attribute, it's a free special, and once per turn, you can negate one card on the field. I wish I could find... I know I have a, like, Shonen Jump copy of this somewhere. It's pretty cool. If you control level 2 or lower monster, you can special this for free in defense position. That's pretty much it. When an opponent declares an attack, you can banish this from the grave, target 1 card you control, negate the attack, destroy the targeted card. So you can negate an attack by sacrificing 1 card you control. Otherwise, it's just a guy that you can summon for free if you control a level 2 or lower, which Speedroids often will, as they're small tuners. Hasty Horse. If there's a column with no cards, special summon this card in attack position to your zone in that column. You can only special summon this once per turn this way. If another card is placed in this column, destroy this card. And once per turn, you can have this card's original attack, and then it can attack directly. This is just an extender. It's funny. You special it into an empty column. It's a 2000 beater, or you can use it for a synchro summon. But if anything lands in its column, so your opponent can just set a spell or trap in its column, it just kills itself. So I would say summon it, use it as a beat stick, and then synchro it off or link it off afterward. Mist Valley Falcon. It's a 2000 beater that you can swing with if you just have a spell or trap to set to bounce back to your hand. So you summon it, set something, swing, bounce that set thing back to your hand, and then set it in the main phase 2 if it's like a trap or something. We've got generic Wind Floater. If there's 2 monsters of the same level on the field, you can special this for free. Also, you can tribute this card, draw 2 on your next draw phase instead of 1. So either you use this as a free summon for a link or synchro play to help you level fix, or you can buff your next draw phase, I guess. Speedroid wise, we've got a Menko, a Stilts, a Double Yo-Yo, a Block and Roll, a Fukumadoshi Piper, a Taka Tomborg, a Terratop, a Carturbo, an Ultra Hound, 2 Daiko Dukes, 1 Marble Machine, and 2 Red-Eyed Dice. So here's your good tuner, here's another tuner, here's 2 more decent tuners, here's another tuner, and the rest are guys. So extender, battle fader, pretty sure it's an extender, best cards of the archetype, and then also kind of an extender. And then I don't really know what this does, but it does something related to Speedroids, so it's there as a one of. Then in terms of spell traps, we've got 5 spells that are all Speedroid. High speed relevel lets you do level fixing, I'm pretty sure. Speed lift. If you control 1 tuner and no others, you can special a level 4 or lower Speedroid from deck, and they cannot activate cards when it's summoned. So it's just an extender for Speedroids. Wheel, really good extender for Speedroids. Recovery, extender for Speedroids. And then finally, another, a Searcher for Speedroids. And then finally, you've got Duplicate. It's the only trap for this archetype. You banish a Wind from your graveyard, bounce one of your opponent's cards to hand, and during the main phases, if it's in your graveyard, you can target a level 2 or higher Speedroid you control and reduce its level by 1 to special summon this as a normal monster. So, firstly, you get to banish a Wind from the grave for a free bounce, and then later, from the grave, you can special summon this by reducing the level of one of your Speedroids on, or one of your, I guess, Wind monsters. No, just Speedroids. By reducing the level of one of your Speedroids on field by 1. So it helps you synchro even more. So yeah, this is still a very strong archetype in the cube. It's just significantly less strong than it once was because it was absolutely absurd as what it was. All right, this next archetype, I have no idea if this archetype is any good. Haven't gotten to play with this archetype in the cube yet. It is very strong in my heart of hearts, but I don't think it's strong truly. I'd have to see. So you've got the dark generic, and then we start with spells and go to spells and traps and go to monsters with this archetype. It's spell counters as an archetype. So Miracle Restoring lets you remove 2 spell counters to revive a Dark Magician. Could also revive a Buster Blader, but that's not in the cube. Thousand Knives, Dark Magical Circle, Dark Magic Inheritance, Dark Magic Attack, Dark Magic Expanded, Dark Magic Curtain, Illusion Magic, and then Mystic Box is like thematically it's still Dark Magician, but from the show, but this is a Dark Magician / spell counter section of the cube. I'm pretty sure it's dog shit weak. I'm not sure because I haven't gotten to play with this in the cube yet. This is like a new-ish addition. These are all of your Dark Magician specific spell traps. If you want to know what these are specifically, you should go look them up on your own, I guess. They're just all Dark Magician themed. Mystic Box is technically Dark Magician themed, just thematically, but not explicitly. So this is generic otherwise. Basically a monster swap, or like a creature swap, pretty much. Then we've got generic spellcaster stuff. So Magicians Unite, you can make a spellcaster huge. Magical Dimension, you can tribute a monster to special summon a spellcaster from hand. Wonder Wand, you can equip it and then gives the spellcaster some damage, but also you can send it to draw 2. Magical Blast, if you have a spellcaster monster, you can inflict 200 damage for each spellcaster you control. And then if it's in your graveyard, you can add it back to your hand instead of your draw phrase. I just think this is cute because maybe you get a cool burn kill out of that. And then this, Mythical Institution, it's not really here for its Mythical Beast Pendulum effects, but you can remove any number of spell counters from your field to add a monster from your deck, which is the only part that matters, with a level equal to the number of counters removed. But you can only search a spell cast, or you can only search a monster that can have spell counters placed on it. So if you have some set of spell counters, you can use this to search more things that do spell counters. In terms of things that you have that do spell counters, you've got 2 of the big breaker. So on summon you get 2 spell counters. And it can you can remove 1 spell counter to pop a spell trap. It's just like Breaker, but bigger. You've got DMG. That's not a spell counter card, but it is DMG. Dark Red Enchanter gets 2 spell counters. Every time a spell counter is activated, it gets a spell counter, and it gains attack per spell counter. And you can remove 2 spell counters to force your opponent to discard a card, a random card. So that's actually pretty good. It's probably on the better end of the spell counter portion. This isn't spell counter based, it's just a spellcaster. You can special it by discarding a card. Magical Marionette is a spell counter theme. Each time your opponent activates a spell, it gets a spell counter, and it gets 200 attack per spell counter, and you can remove 2 spell counters to pop a monster. Tomato is your Dark Floater, relatively generic. Exemplar, each time a spell counter or a spell is activated, you place 2 spell counters on this. Once per turn, you remove any number of spell counters. Special summon a spellcaster from your hand or GY, whose level is equal to the number of spell counters. Summoner Monk, mostly generic, could also be considered a support for the generic Xyz archetype, but it's just lets you summon more level 4s. Skilled Dark Magician lets you get spell counters and remove them to summon a Dark Magician. Mythical Beast Cerberus. Each time a spell is activated, gains a spell counter, gains 500 attack for each spell counter on it. If it attacks or is attacked, remove all spell counters at the end of the battle phase. So, basically just a spell counter holder. It's level 4 and can sometimes be huge. 2 regular breaker that holds 1 spell counter and can pop spell traps. Skilled Brown Magician. It's not really here for the Karibo situation, but it can collect up to 3 spell counters, and you can remove 1 to make it gain 1500 attack permanently and increase its level by 1. So it can snowball really fast. Its other effects is about Karibo. Karibo's not included. Defender, the Magical Knight. When it's normal summon, it gets a spell counter once per turn. If a face-up spellcaster would be destroyed, you can remove a spell counter from a card you control for each instead. So it's a protecting card that can also garner 1, hold on to 1 spell counter. Royal Magical Library, it can hold up to 3 spell counters. That's why it's there. Other than that, there's also Magical Plant Mandragora. On flip, it adds a spell counter to everything that could have a spell counter. We've got 2 DMG. Technically also synergizes with the normal archetype that's in this cube. And then we've got some generic spellcaster stuff. These are technically generically good too. We're going to skip this. That's good. These are technically generically good, but they are spell counters. You draw a card, you can Foolish a level 4 or lower, and it draws a card when it floats. These 2 are very good together, and this can also work decently with this. Apprentice basically lets you special, well, not only when it's summoned, you can put a spell counter on something, but also when it's destroyed by battle, it floats into a spellcaster into face down defense. So you can float into a Mandragola or an Old Vindictive if this dies. Technically, you can also float into a Robe. Copycat, it's Copycat, and then these two are just more fucking, I don't know, Dark Magician synergy. I know that Dark Magician synergy is necessary for the Dark Magician section, but it's a spellcaster / Dark Magician archetype, which I think is neat, and it's nostalgia. 3 more archetypes to go. We're gonna barrel through them. This archetype is the hardest to use in the cube, in my opinion, but I think it's the coolest. So you've got generic Fire Charmer, generic Fire Guy, and then it's freaking Evil Tile / Evil Sores, plus other dinos. So in terms of traps, you've got 2 of the Evolutionary Bridge, which is the Evil Tile trap, battle trap. Whenever a monster is targeted for an attack, you can target an Evil Tile in the graveyard and special summon it and switch the attack target to it. So it's basically a redirect. Evo Branch lets you tribute a reptile monster, or target a reptile monster you control, destroy it, and special summon an Evil Tile in face down defense from the deck. So you can get out a Westlow with this, which is crazy. This is a generic dinosaur trap, battle trap. You target a dinosaur, equip this card to it, it gains 1,000. When it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you get to make a second attack with that monster. Spell-wise, you get 2 Fossil Digs, because Fossil Dig, is the only thing that makes this maybe helpful of a deck. You get 1 Evo Diversity, which is the Rhoda for Evils, and you get Evo Price, which is if a monster is special summoned by the effect in an Evil Tile, you can pop a card. So not bad, honestly. Next, for extra deck, you get 1 Dolka and a Granosaurus. Previously, I had 2 Dolka, and it was way too strong. This card is insane, and it makes playing Evils pretty much worth it if you can get this card, just because of how freaking demoralizing this thing is, really. And there are combos for the Evils in the cube that make it relatively easy to summon this as long as you can pull off the combo. So this is the huge payoff that you're getting for playing what is otherwise kind of a weak archetype. There are some generic fire support, I believe. We've got Cataclysmic Scorching Sunburner. It's the same thing as the Calcifida from the Earths. Then let's take out regular dinos here real quick and have those separate from the evils, I think. 1 second. This archetype has like the most duplicates of the whole cube. All right, so in terms of regular dinos, I don't think this is not a pill cube. I wouldn't be doing pills in this cube. But what you do have are some decent main deck boss monsters that you might tribute summon into. You've got Superconductor Tyranno. You can tribute a monster to inflict 1,000. Someday that might matter. Giant Rex. It's a Giant Rex. It's a classic dino card. If it's banished, you can special it. Sometimes you might banish it. Hyper Hammerhead. If it battles and it's not destroyed, you can bounce the monster it fights. Misk, because Misk is broken, but it doesn't have the things that make it broken in this cube for the most part. Black Stego, it's just a 2,000 defender, but you can summon it in attack position so that it then switches to defense position when attacked. Soul Eating Oviraptor, because it's nuts. You can search a dino or foolish a dino, and then you can also target a dino and pop it, but again, the whole popping synergy of dinos isn't really in this cube. Hydrageddon, there's 2 of them. It's one way for you to get an entire Dolka. If you can successfully draft both and beat over something with the get on, I think you deserve to make a Dolka. Flower Dino is insane, definitely deserves being put up on database. If I can get this here. So the way Flower Dino works, you can't normal summon it, but if you activate a trap card or a trap effect, or your opponent activates a spell card or spell effect, you can special summon this from your hand. And if it's sent to the graveyard, you can target 3 banished spell and traps and place them on the bottom of the appropriate decks in any order to draw a card. The second effect usually doesn't happen, but what really matters is that this makes it really easy to summon 2, and there's 2 in the cube, 2 level 4 dinos for a Dolka, or just 1 extra if you need the 1 more. Other than that, in the name of generic dinos, hold on. Gillosaurus, risky, but it's an extender, and 2 Beat Raptors, because Beat Raptor, when it is destroyed by battle, you can float it into another Beat Raptor. So there's 2 in the cube, and negates the effects of monsters in the extra monster zone, while this is in the main monster zone. That's not, usually doesn't matter, but sometimes it does. In terms of the evils, we've got one Elias. When it's special, you can special summon a level 6 or lower fire dinosaur from hand, so you can special one of your other evil sores. 2 Darwino. If it's special summoned by an evil tile, you can target a face-up monster on the field and increase its level by 2. Usually doesn't matter, maybe sometimes. Pelta, Diplo, and Volcano. Pelta, if it's special summoned by an evil tile, it gains 500. If it's special summoned by the effect of an evil tile, then is destroyed by battle, you can search an evil tile. Diplo, if it's special summoned by evil tile, you can pop a spell trap. But most importantly is Volcano. If it's special summoned by an evil tile, you can target an evil sore in the grave and special summon it. So this is usually how, in the evil tile engine, you'll be making your actual Dolka. You want to get this out with your evil tiles while having another sore in your graveyard that you can special with it to then summon your Dolka. In terms of evil tiles, you got the Legasucho. If it's normal, you can send a sore from deck to grave. So that's how you can foolish a sore for this situation. And when it's flipped face up, you can special an evil tile from deck. So it's a flip to float, or you can normal it to foolish. Westlow's insane. On flip, you special an evil sore from deck, which is so cool. So flip, you can get your Elias, your Darwino, or any of them, and that's why Westlow is awesome. You've got 1 Pluro. If it's destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a sore from hand. You've got 2 Jeffero. If it's destroyed by battle and sent to the graveyard, you can revive a sore from grave. And then most importantly, and the main combo card, is Mega Chirella. So you can tribute a reptile and then discard a card to special summon a level 6 or lower fire dinosaur from deck. Then you can banish this card from your graveyard, target one, or also you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 Dragon Xyz you control with no material, attach up to 2 reptile or dinosaur monsters with different names from your hand or graveyard to it as material. So the main combo is if you have a Mega Chirella and then any one of your level 4 sores, any one of them, as long as you don't have both of the Volcanos in hand, you can normal Chirella, effect, tribute itself, discard one of your sores, summon your Volcano from deck, effect of the Volcano to summon the sore that you discarded, overlay those into your evil sore, your Dolka. Then Dolka, when it's done and it's used both of its materials and detach them, you can use this later to banish it and basically reload your Dolka with 2 more materials. So this thing makes your Dolka even more of a menace. I like the evils a lot. They're obviously better in the cube than they will ever be in actual Yu-Gi-Oh! Okay, second to last archetype. This is the Link archetype. This here, you contact fuse it with 3 Link monsters. It's a big guy. Don't really know what it does. Then you've got your Link 4s. Agave, Firewall, Crusadia, Avramax. This is your big payoff boss monster for the most part. Your Link 3s, you've got Scare Archfiend, Raw 10, Shooting Code, X Code, N Code, X Code. For your Link 2s, you've got Binary, Space Insulator, Inverted, Talker, Disciple, Devotee, and Almirage. I don't really want to talk about these because I don't like Link monsters as an archetype basically at all. All I know is that these are what you're going to use to climb, pretty much. But they're here because I think that Links do deserve a spot in the cube just because they're such a significant part of Yu-Gi-Oh! Then, in terms of the main deck, you've got a Borg. If you control no monster, you can just special summon it by discarding a Cyberse. World Crown, you can special summon it in defense position to a zone of Link monster points to, so it's an extender. Boot Staggered, if you normal a Cyberse, you can special this. Rebuild Year, it's dog shit. It's just a guy. It's a Cyberse normal summon. Rom Claudia, normal summon, you can add to your hand a Cyberse from grave, and if it's destroyed, you can special a Cyberse from deck. Clock, Yup Clock, if it's normal, you can have its attack and get a token to help you Link climb. Balancer Lord, pay 1,000, do an additional normal of a Cyberse. You've got, we're going to pull these out separate here. So there's not tons of Crusadia synergy in the cube, but there are just these 4 that you can use for Link climbing. Cyberse Gadget, when you normal summon it, you can revive a level 2 or lower, and then if it's sent to from the field to the grave, you get a token that you can use to continue to climb. Backlinker, if they have a card in the EMZ, you can special it. Backup Secretary, if you control a Cyberus, it's a free special. These two, both special if you have no monsters. That's for Link Fodder. Dotscaper, Link Fodder, and when it goes to the grave, you can get it back to do even more. You can only use it once per duel, though. Microcoder, Link from hand, pretty dope. It does search a Signet spell or trap, which we have 1 Signet trap and 2 Signet spells. We'll get to those in a moment. In terms of other spells, you got one-time passcode, summons a security token, which is just a Cyberus for more linking. World Legacy Succession, it's an extender for link climbing. Link Burst, target a link monster you control and a monster your opponent controls, pop them and then draw a card. So decent card if you've got like a Dogwater link monster. You can even use this just like not in a link dedicated archetype. It's honestly kind of generic. Every archetype has like some one link monster for the most part. Network Trap Hole, when they special summon a monster, banish it face down. This is literally only here because I think it looks Cybersy. It's technically a generic. In terms of these Signet spells and traps, you have Signet Regression. If you special summon a link monster, you can target 1 card on the field, destroy it, then draw a card. That's just insane, right? You set this on 1 turn. On the follow-up, when you do a link summon, you get to pop and draw. And then Signet Crosswipe, you can tribute a Cyberus to pop a card on the field, which is decent. It's not the worst. There are Cyberus monsters that are worth tributing for a pop, and pops are very, very important. Okay, so close. This has been fun, though. Last archetype is my maybe personal favorite, other than Evil Sores. It's close. This is just the normals. It's just normals archetype. Extra deck wise, you got Daigusto because it can revive a non-effect. You've got some 10 Ys and also the Defender of the Labyrinth. 10 Ys are 10 Ys. They do stuff with normal monsters. That's all I'll say about that. Defender of the Labyrinth, it uses 2 normal monsters, buffs your normal monsters, and then also makes your opponent's effect monsters lose attack, and if it's destroyed, you can revive a normal monster. In terms of effect monsters that support normals, we've got Cosmo Brain. You discard a big normal monster to summon it. Or you discard any normal monster, summon it for free. It gains attack equal to the level of that normal monster times 200. So huge guy if you discard a huge normal. Tour Ride. The first normal monster you control that would be destroyed by battle or card effect is not destroyed. Also, if you control a normal monster, you can just special summon this for free. So it's a big guy. You just summon it for free if you have a normal, and it can protect normals. Then you've got the 10 Yi Spirits of the cube. Some of them are better than others. So, you know, you've got a Vashuda. That's pretty crazy. And all of these technically can definitely be used outside of archetype. But they're here with the intent of being used with normal monsters. When you normal this, you get to normal summon, or sorry, special summon a level 4 lower normal. So that's why it's there. Then here are the normal monsters. So a lot of these, this is all the effect monsters that support normals. A lot of these normal monsters technically also like cross over in usability to other archetypes, which is by design. But otherwise they're just normals for the sake of synergize. So you've got Cosmo Queen. That's the one that Cosmo Brain is like a direct reference to. So Cosmo Queen maybe is your best bet for discarding for Cosmo Brain. But also Rabid Dragon is a level 8, so good for Cosmo Brain. You've got 4 level 6 1 tribute guys that are just big. This one may synergize with your darks. This one may synergize with your waters. This one may synergize with your earths, but it's also a spellcaster. You've got Millennium Shield and Cybertech Alligator. Millennium Shield is a 1 tribute 3000 defender normal. That's pretty cool. Sabersaurus technically synergizes with your dinos as well. Clavkiss is just a 1919. Gemini Elf is a 19 attack. Shari is a 2000 attack. Elf is a 2000 defense. Here's your Lajin for that lamp earlier. Luster Dragon, Island Turtle 2000, Spirit of the Harp 2000, Alexandrite 2000, Squatter 2000, Vorse Raider 19, Chamberlain 2000, Giant Soldier 2000, and Vanilla 2050. Whoa. So yeah, it was a decent selection of normal monsters. Most of the time, you'll probably be drafting normal monsters just with the intent of having a set 2000 defense monster or a normal summon 2000 attack monster, but you could also use it with a synergistic like archetype plan. Other than that, spells and traps. Spell wise, you get 2 flawless. There's 2 flawless perfection. So non-effect monsters are unaffected by monster effects, so all of your normals are protected. If your opponent specials a monster, while you control a face-down monster or non-effect monster, you get to draw 2. So that part is honestly the main insane thing. Worth honestly running sometimes, even if you're not doing normals as an archetype. Supernatural Danger Zone. If a non-effect monster is special summoned, you can target a card your opponent controls and destroy it. If this is destroyed by a card effect, you can special a non-effect from hand, deck, or graveyard. So 1, it lets you pop things when you do something like Unexpected Die, and 2, it floats into a normal monster if they remove it. Ancient Rules summons a normal. Swing of Memories summons a normal from the grave that's destroyed during the end phase, and Heart of the Underdog is Heart of the Underdog. In terms of traps, you got 2 counter traps here. You can only use them if you control a face-up non-effect monster. And then also, if this set card is destroyed, it can float into a non-effect monster. So if your opponent uses removal, you can float into an extra deck non-effect monster, namely your Berserker or your Monk, but most of the time your 3K Berserker. I don't want to listen to Delilah, shut up. That's a good song. And then the last 2 cards of the entire cube, Different Dimension Derby. This is just if you control a face-up monster that was ritual summoned using a normal monster, or was fusion, synchro, XYZ, or link summoned using a normal monster, you can target a card on the field, banish it. So if you summon any of your 10 Ys or whatever using a normal monster, or if you exceed into Daigusto, you get a banish. This can also technically be used in other archetypes that you happen to use normals for. Like maybe if you're playing Dinos and you draft the Sabersaurus, and then you seize for Dulka with Sabersaurus, then you can technically DDR, or sorry, DDD, DDD, and get a free banish, get a banish as well. So yeah, that's the normal archetype. So, basically, my intent for streaming this is 1, because I like talking about Yu-Gi-Oh cards. 2, to make it so that if I ever kind of suggest to a group that we should play with this cube I've designed, that they have something to look at. And 3 is to kind of have something to gather advice from. So I'm probably going to upload this as a video sometime. It'll definitely be a VOD somewhere. If you have any suggestions about things that should be added to the cube, removed to the cube, changed about it, whatever, please drop those on the, I don't know, like comment it on the VOD when the VOD goes on the VOD channel. The VOD channel is just Twitch, or Thud Thud Tonk VODs. It's on YouTube. You can get to it if you click the About bird in my, or the Welcome bird in my About section on the Twitch, and then that will direct you to my Thud Thud Tonk channel, which will then have a link to the VODs channel. Anyways, that's all for now. I have class in a half an hour, and I think I will go to it this time instead of skipping it. So anybody who joined me, thank you